Gore has taken it up to a new level.
Adam Curry, John C. Dvorak.
It's Sunday, October 14th, 2018. This is your award-winning Gitmo Nation Media Assassination, episode 1077.
This is No Agenda.
Parsing the prophets and broadcasting live from the capital of the Drone Star State here in downtown Austin, Tejas, in the Cludio. In the morning, everybody. I'm Adam Curry.
And from northern Silicon Valley, where I sit here awaiting the Zephyr, I'm John C. Dvorak.
It's Crackpot and Buzzkill in the morning.
Yeah, we're just never going to have that happen.
I just heard it honk.
No. It can't be. It is only 11 after the hour. It's not early.
I'm telling you, I'm hearing it honk, and I think it's going to. Well, I mean, I can hear the honk from Emeryville, this horn they got on these things. But the thing is that we never mentioned that about 4 shows ago, the Zephyr came by 3 hours late after the show was over.
Yeah, it was. I can't believe I didn't call the Austin Statesman to alert them to this fact.
You should have. It's something they should write up.
So there's 3 or 4 big news deconstruction items. We have the actually I have the correct pronunciation, Khashoggi situation, formerly known as Khashoggi.
Before you go on with that, Amy Goodman got so confused with the pronunciation, she would pronounce it 2 ways, and she did say Khashoggi is the American pronunciation.
Well, our dude...
So it's still okay, and I like Khashoggi better. I
like it too, but our dude named Muhammad did send me a note and said the official pronunciation is Khashoggi.
Yeah, it's impossible.
It's okay. I just want to make sure everyone knows that
you're sneezing. I have to say Gesundheit every time you say it.
That's a microaggression, man. So do you have a clip of her getting confused? Do you have a clip of her talking about that?
I do have a bunch of clips about the Khashoggi and her talking, giving some spiel. No, I don't have. I didn't make that specific clip.
I mean, I wouldn't mind diving right into. We'll just call him Khashoggi for our show, just to make it easy, because this is very interesting in so many different ways, and there's so much obvious bullcrap out there. For example, that they unlocked this guy's Apple Watch with his fingerprint.
Yeah,
you don't need a fingerprint.
Before we go into that, well, they had his finger right there.
Yeah, but you don't need that to unlock the Apple phone. You just don't need.
No, I know, but they could have chopped his finger off anyway, just for the fun of it.
Oh,
now,
yeah.
I do have one. The longest clip I have I thought was a very good CNN wrap of the Khashoggi story without all the details you're going to bring in and I'm going to bring in. But it's just, and I thought it was a good example of CNN actually doing their job with Nick Robertson, who's a pretty good correspondent.
Behind these walls topped with razor wire, the epicenter of a spiraling crisis that threatens to engulf this whole region, one that has reverberated far beyond Turkey. A source with knowledge of the investigation tells CNN that Turkish authorities have shared some of their evidence of Jamal Khashoggi's murder inside the consulate here with their Western intelligence allies. And some of those partners have been deeply, deeply shocked at the brutality of what they learned. The evidence, according to the CNN source via Western intelligence, includes audio-visual information from inside the building, revealing an assault, a struggle, and the moment Khashoggi's life ends. On Friday, what appears to have been a Saudi delegation ushered quickly into the building, mission unknown. Prince Khalid Al Faisal, one of the kingdom's most trusted figures, also visiting Turkey in an effort to tamp down tensions, according to Reuters. But each new detail makes the task of containing those tensions and the fallout across the Middle East more difficult. Among the many questions still unanswered, what happened to this van? Seen leaving the Saudi consulate soon after Turkish officials say Khashoggi was killed. Saudi Arabia continues to deny any involvement in Khashoggi's disappearance. Its regional allies are stepping up their support. The United Arab Emirates Minister for Foreign Affairs, Anwar Gargash, tweeting, "The repercussions of political targeting of Saudi Arabia will be dire on those who inflame it." Bahrain's foreign minister, Khalid bin Ahmed, complaining Saudi Arabia is the target, not the search for truth. But at the centre of it all, the consulate. It was last Saturday that the consul let in the media, sheepishly opening cupboards and doors. But Turkish officials are still waiting for their investigators to be given access. And that is why the fate of Jamal Khashoggi is both a mystery and an international crisis.
Yeah, I really like that clip for a couple of reasons. Seriously, CNN has been using Richard Engels a lot, which always alerts me to a lot of bull crap coming your way.
Well, no, actually, it's MSNBC that uses.
Oh, I'm sorry, because I thought you said it was CNN.
No, this is CNN. CNN doesn't use Richard.
Oh, it's MSNBC. I'm sorry, you're right. So what was interesting about this clip is when he got to the true importance of this story, which is the political ramifications with Saudi Arabia, the audio went completely dead. There was no background noise. It was a little, dull, kind of flat, and then right back to a lot of noise and information about how the guy got killed. Listen, I just want to.
Well, I have some questions.
Oops, let me just bring that in here because that was quite interesting.
Behind these walls, topped with
this part, I think.
the repercussions of political targeting of Saudi Arabia will be.
So it's gone completely dead. He's just talking about the repercussions.
Dire on those who inflame it. Bahrain's foreign minister Khalid bin
Still
Ahmed
dead.
complaining Saudi Arabia is the target, not the search for truth.
And now back to
But
your
at
brain.
the centre of it all, the consulate.
And then we say at the center of it all.
It was last Saturday that
It's like, how did it happen? And of course, everyone's focused on how did it happen? Apple Watch chopped into bits. It's really unimportant. It's just another dead guy.
MacGuffin.
Yeah, it's just another dead guy. It's like there's lots of dead people, but no, I mean it would just. I know it's just not.
Wait till you hear the Amy Goodman stuff.
It's not fair to say, but the political ramifications is what is incredibly interesting, and I just want to play this clip because it shows that we are from the future. This is Tim Kaine. He's still a senator, isn't he, Tim Kaine?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, the former presidential running mate for Hillary Clinton. NPR calls him in, and this is where it gets...
He got to do with anything?
Well, I have some questions that might be answered yes or no, and the first has to be, you see intelligence reports. Are you convinced the Saudi government or its operatives assassinated Jamal Khashoggi?
Not yet completely convinced, but there's enough corroboration out there that I think the burden of proof is on the Saudis to prove that they did not have anything to do either with harming, kidnapping, or killing Jamal Khashoggi. The burden of proof is on them.
Now, that's funny by itself. The burden of proof is on them. But listen to what he comes up with and the reason for him on NPR. I like that you questioned that.
If that's certified, I'll throw out some possibilities. Should the U.S. close that big embassy in Riyadh? Should they close that big building on Virginia Avenue that's the Saudi embassy? Should it break off relations?
Well, Scott, first, I mean, this is a horrific alleged crime against a journalist. Our president attacks journalists as enemies of the people, but we need to stand up.
Nicely done. Come on, give him some props for bringing Trump in to be maybe partially responsible for some embassy workers to want to kill the press.
It was
good. It was good.
Look at the net.
It was good.
For journalists everywhere, Jamal Khashoggi's a Virginia resident. And you're right, there are a number of things that we could do. I'll tell you what I focus on. The first thing the Senate did this week, the members of the Foreign Relations Committee on which I sit, is we sent a letter to the president to trigger his review of whether this treatment of Jamal Khashoggi violates something called the Magnitsky Act.
Oh, God.
Did I not call it? I said, you watch.
You actually did. I was actually dubious about it personally.
Now, listen. Now, Tim Kaine gives us a little more information.
These guys throw this shit out there. Oh, Magnitsky Act.
Well,
and it never gets explained. And people go, "Oh, the Magnitsky Act. This is like the Logan Act. Oh, you violated the Logan Act."
Nobody
Kaine even knows what these people are talking about. It's completely out of range. But go on.
Tim Kaine is actually going to explain what this means.
Magnitsky Act allows the White House to put sanctions on individuals if they engage in human rights abuses. When we send the letter, it triggers a 120-day investigative period where the administration has to report back to Congress as to whether there has been a human rights violation and what they're going to do about it. That's number one. Number two...
So, contrary to what normally happens, Tim Kaine gave us the background doesn't matter. It's been used on the Russians. It was created for the Russians. But he gave us a pretty good explanation.
Yeah.
Including the 120-day waiting period and what it triggers. And this is a political move that's being made. And there's two other moves that are being made.
We have been, in the Senate, increasingly concerned about Saudi Arabia and working to potentially cease arms sales to them. We had a vote a few months ago where 47 of us voted to block arms sales to Saudi Arabia because of their mishandling of the civil war in Yemen and the massive humanitarian crisis there. So a second thing that you are likely to see, I think Senators Paul and Murphy have talked about this, is additional action to block arms sales. President Trump reacted very negatively to that the other day, but you'll see that. And then the final one is U.S. support for the Saudis and the UAE on the war in Yemen. I think there's increasingly a desire to just cease U.S. support for the war in Yemen, which is a massive humanitarian disaster. So I think before we get into embassy diplomatic relations, we've had a long-standing relationship with Saudi Arabia, but I think there are Magnitsky, arms sales, and support for the war in Yemen are probably the three areas where Congress is now most focused, and it is a dramatic change in attitude about Saudi Arabia as a result of this action.
So I think it's just went so smoothly and so quickly. The guy's dead within a week. We're sending the letter with them to evoke the Magnitsky Act.
Within 24 hours, they had little signs. In fact, I think there was a screw up because it said free Khashoggi, and then these people were outside the embassy holding these pre-printed signs with a photo.
It was pre-printed. Oh, excellent.
Yeah, it was all pre-printed. There's a bunch of them. Like, I had in the newsletter, there's a picture in the newsletter of these guys holding these signs.
Oh, that's right.
And it was like, that was within like minutes. Yeah. So this whole thing
stinks. Now, something, I don't know if it's in one of your clips, but the complete, unbelievable coincidence of the pastor being released at the same time this takes place, which is just a coincidence, everybody. I please want you to remember it is just a coincidence. That can't be a coincidence.
No, it can't be a coincidence.
It sounds like a deal. It sounds like a deal.
Coincidence.
So there's a lot of reasons to not like Saudi Arabia. We understand what Tim Kaine, a Democrat, but he mentioned Rand Paul's, and I think that there's plenty, and I agree. We should have this Yemen thing is, I understand Iran bad. Saudis are oil, but Trump is angry with the Saudis about the price of oil. There's plenty of reason to set them down, put them in their place a little bit.
But we don't. But what I like about Trump being so pragmatic is you could do that, but no, let's don't blow this $110 billion arms deal.
Right. Yeah. Well,
which I still think is actually
the deal's
oddly charming.
The deal's not even. I think the deal's not even completely done. I think it's still in the works, and it's not like
that's why he doesn't want to. Yeah, so that's kind of an issue.
Well, it's a sales guy's dilemma in this case. It's like, crap, I really do want to screw those guys over, but I wanted to make a big announcement about the $110 billion. Just back to the pastor for a moment. Just a very short clip. This was on Fox News. There was some CIA shill, obviously, talking about the pastor and. Just how we got him released. But this is not listen to this and you'll see the slip up.
The president was the timing of this. Erdogan's releasing of Pastor Brunson. The president said that the timing is totally coincidence. This has nothing to do with the alleged murder of Khashoggi, of the U.S. journalist Khashoggi. What do you say to that?
Well, I'd say a couple things first. There's still a lot of work yet to be done. There are other Americans, including an NSA ethnic Turkish officer or scientist, Serkan Bolca, who's in Turkey.
An NSA officer, a scientist. Come on,
that's a great catch.
Then you look at this pastor.
Guys.
Of course, the spies are the least likely people. They don't all look like James Bond. I'm not saying that the pastor was one, but it's guys like that who are patriotic and want to help their country. And I'll pass on some info or whatever.
Sign on.
Yeah, they sign on, and it's easy to get seduced into that.
And the problem I see with it, and I think it's a huge problem for the intelligence community, is what happened to all these Chinese. is that they have people, and I don't want to point the finger at anybody like Brennan, but they have people in that agency that apparently are turning over our spies to the alien.
Oh, really?
Countries.
You think that's what happened with our spies in China?
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
Well, now they finally pinned it on a guy that was working at the agency, a Chinese guy who then took off and left the agency and ran off to China. They kind of blame him for the whole thing because he got access to the database. But it's still like, that thing's a leaky boat. It doesn't really, you can't, and the new, I don't want to get off track, but I'll just say this. The modernization process that they're doing at the CIA does one thing most importantly. It centralizes all the information into a giant digital database, which makes it very easy to out these guys. Yeah. In the olden days, and the old timers will say, if you read the
stuff in a bottom drawer, you had a dossier, a file.
They were all in silos.
Yes, yeah.
It's like I'm like a top agent.
Compartmentalization, I think it's called.
And I have my guys
in
China. I got 3 guys in China. Maybe this other guy's got 2 other guys in China. But they're not hooked. There's no database with all their names in one box. They're trying to eliminate.
Which has Salesforce on top of it for some reason. I don't know why the CIA did that. But
well, they love Salesforce.
So, of course, Trump is being pressured now. Don't send Mnuchin off to the was it like the investor conference? Christine Lagarde is also very concerned, but she said, well, I'm going to go to the investor conference anyway. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on the president.
She's going?
Yeah, Fifi Lagarde is going.
That was misled. I was reading something that says, the only people going on it, this is one of those, I think it was CNN.
Did you see that the media was all, CNN is pulled out, Fox News is everyone's pulling out?
No. Fox is going.
Oh, I thought that they were pulling out too.
No, that was the big insult. Oh, Fox is going, those creeps.
There you go. Well, as you know, it's just for an audience of one. Fox News, audience of one. All right, so what you got? What you got from...
Well, I only have humorous stuff.
Yeah, that's good. I have one kicker to wrap this up, but if you got some...
No, you keep your wrap. Let's go with...
We're still on Khashoggi, though, right?
Yeah, Khashoggi. I got my Khashoggi stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start with the Democracy Now! 1. This is in the middle of her report, and we can get a feeling for where she's headed. It turns out that Amy Goodman has a lot of opinions about this, and so whatever it is, it's mostly her talking, and it's quite interesting, and there's some good stuff in there.
The full audio and video recordings have not yet been released. One person with knowledge of the audio recording told the Washington Post, quote, "You can hear his voice and the voices of men speaking Arabic. You can hear how he was interrogated, tortured, and then murdered." Unquote. Khashoggi had written critically about the Saudi government and the Saudi crown prince, MBS, Mohammed bin Salman. He fled Saudi Arabia last year and had been living in Virginia. The Washington Post has also reported that based on U.S. intelligence intercepts,
I just like that he was living in Virginia. Langley, come on.
Crown Prince had directly ordered an operation to lure Khashoggi back to Saudi Arabia. The Turkish government has accused Saudi Arabia of flying 2 planes into Turkey, carrying 15-man assassination squad to carry out the murder. One of the Saudi men was reportedly a forensic expert known for pioneering rapid and mobile autopsies. Turkish officials say the men used a bone saw to dismember Khashoggi's body before smuggling body parts out of the consulate.
Bone saw.
I love the bone saw part of the story.
They've kind of inserted that. Bone saw.
Bone saw. It sounds dramatic. Now, what was the point of them mentioning or even discussing a guy who's an autopsy expert? I put this in the newsletter, like, what? So what?
Yeah, just to give it credence and make it sound official.
What do you need 15 guys to do an assassination? What's the point of all these people? Just so they can carry the body parts out? You only need maybe 5.
Well, I think whether the 15 guys walked in or not or whatever happened, they arrived on private jets. It just makes for a great story to distract everyone from what's really going on with this. I mean, that and Judy, by the way, for those who don't know, Democracy Now! Is aired on... It's on public television, correct?
Yeah, and mostly free speech TV.
Okay. because some people are even saying, what is democracy now? Because I don't think anyone watches
it's
it
the War
but
and
you.
Peace Report.
You're the only one keeping that thing alive.
It's the War and Peace Report with Amy Goodman.
Yeah, gotcha.
Okay, well, so she gets this guy on. She gets Ro Khanna, the guy who's like a local representative for the Democrats, Silicon Valley guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he looks like I don't know if you ever saw that Indiana Jones thing where that guy used to grab the heart. You put some horrible looking guy with big eyes. He'd grab your heart and pull it out and hold it up for the crowd.
Yeah.
Well, this Ro Khanna looks just like that guy.
Can you talk?
Oh, sorry.
Wait, stop. I got to set this up.
Gotcha.
Now, she's going to add – this is a question. Instead of asking – she's going to ask Ro Khanna a question, but the question is like 10 times longer than any possible answer because she goes the Shaggy Dog story and gets very sidetracked. But I think the information she provides is kind of interesting for us to analyze before you get your wrap.
Can you talk about exactly what the U.S. relationship is with Saudi Arabia? Also, of course, it implicates Jared Kushner, the senior advisor, President Trump's son-in-law, very close to Mohammed bin Salman. And this information Washington Post put out about they already had wanted to get Khashoggi to lure him back to Saudi Arabia for, well, who knows what they wanted to do with him, to lure him from Saudi Arabia. Also, this information that he had gone to the Saudi consulate, the embassy in Washington, but they told him he had to go to Istanbul. He goes to Istanbul to the consulate there, and they tell him, fine, they're going to give him that marriage document he needed. But he had to come back in a week. So he goes to London, participates in a meeting last week, and goes back, which presumably is for them to prepare and to bring these two planes in with the forensic expert and the military and intelligence people. And at least according to these latest reports, if this is true, with the video and audio evidence, he was murdered and dismembered within a few hours, and then the planes flew out.
Well, it's brutal. And what we also know are reports that U.S. intelligence agencies may have been aware.
She's Nancy Drew.
Well, she goes on, but there's a couple of interesting points that have to be thought about. Because one of the things at least we do on the show is look at the logic of a lot of this. Khashoggi knows or senses that he wants to be tricked into going back to Saudi Arabia because they offered him a consulting gig, but they don't like him. So he figures, well, I don't know, maybe they're going to chop my head off. I'm not going back. I'm staying
like Casino. I'm going to be a made man, but maybe not such a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. And so he ends up with going to the Virginia. Now I found out what this document was. He supposedly. Now I don't know. You've been married a couple of times.
Yeah, I got some standing.
I would ask: when you go to get married and say that at wherever at the court or in the church, do they ask you for proof of your last divorce?
It depends, and
it's happened to you.
Yes, that happened. In relation to a green card, which is the two previous reasons I got married. You do have to prove if it's an immigration issue and you get married, then you have to prove that the previous marriage was dissolved. And so
this has to do with the immigration scams.
Yeah, but yes, exactly. So that may have had something to do with it. I don't know.
He would be the guy with the green card, so I don't know how that would work.
I'm
guessing he could have gone to Vegas and gotten married pretty easily. But no, he needs to get proof for some reason, for some court, for someone that he's been legally divorced from his other. That he's been
legally divorced. Well, maybe it was for his citizenship or green card. Something. There's something about that makes sense.
Well, then he goes to the Turkish consulate in Washington, D.C., and they say, no, you have to go to Istanbul. Now, this makes no sense to me. Why does he have to go to Istanbul? And he doesn't think this is suspicious? I mean, why doesn't he say, can you mail it to me?
Yeah.
Can you mail it to me? You know who I am. You can't – just bull crap. Why do I have to go to Istanbul? So he goes to Istanbul.
Hold on 1 second. In the Muslim faith, don't you just say, I'm not married, I'm not married, I'm not married?
Yeah,
is that the punchline?
That is true, but it's kind of a myth in terms of civil the law in the United States.
It's hard to get. You can't just do an iPhone video and say, "Here's my proof. I said it 3 times," or "Yeah, I'll say it in front of you."
Yeah, I mean, this would be logical. I'm not going to argue. I thought about that too. So he just stupidly goes to Istanbul, and then they look around and they say, "Oh, geez, we weren't expecting you. You have to come back in a week."
So we can set up the chopping block.
In a week? You can get a whole new passport. You can sit there. No, you have to come back in a week. So he goes to London and then gives a speech or something. And he
had a meeting. He had a meeting of sorts. Okay.
And by the way, there's a Turkish or there's a Saudi embassy in London, a big one. He could have gone and done business there.
And they do a lot of work there.
It's a huge embassy. It's maybe bigger than the one in Istanbul. But they can't do the paperwork there. Okay. So he doesn't think twice about this. He says, okay, I'm going to stupidly go back to Istanbul and go into the embassy, charge into the embassy. And he goes in there and then he disappears. Now, this doesn't sound right under any circumstances, especially for a guy who's suspicious.
Now, the one thing I thought immediately was extraction exercise. I don't know why, but I'm just throwing it in there. I thought
that too.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I thought, because they had the 15 guys that got to get him out of there somehow. They get him out of there and take him back to Saudi Arabia.
And they claim that he's been chopped up.
And now the MI6 guys, I'll mention this. They said that they thought it was an extraction, and they drugged him and they killed him by using too much of the drugs. They were idiots. They filled the thing to kill him.
Wow, an extraction gone horribly wrong.
Yes, extraction gone wrong. So, but that belies all these so-called, they found him, they yelled at him in Arabic, they tortured him and then killed him. When they have video and audio evidence, which again is another question. How did they get this? Because
where is it? Where is it? Where is it?
Yeah, where is it? And the second thing, now that they had 2 versions of this tape, and then there's the bogus story about the iPhone or the iWatch, the Apple Watch. He apparently turned it on record, or he
sent it to the cloud,
cell signal, and he was videotaping himself in this embassy, which I'm sure is shrouded with Faraday cage material. I would be if I had run an embassy.
I think
this. The whole story stinks to high heaven.
So in No Agenda Thinking, we will focus on what's going to be done with it. But my last clip is from France 24, kind of a wrap-up for what was happening with him or what he might have been doing if he was creating enemies. This is on France 24, his friend Salim Sazak.
Now, for more on that story, we're joined by Salim Rezac, a Turkish political scientist based in Washington, D.C. Thank you for talking.
This clip in the beginning, the guy's on Skype, and it's a really crappy connection, so it's not your file, it's not me, it's not Skype, it's on the recording.
Now, for more on that story, we're joined by Salim Rezac, a Turkish political scientist based in Washington, D.C. Thank you for talking to us on France 24. Now, Salim, you personally know Jamal Khashoggi. You met him half a dozen times this year alone. Tell us about that.
Mr. Khashoggi was a regular fixture at events in Washington, in New York as well. It would not be accurate to say that I know him per se. He's got his friends and colleagues who would be in a position to speak much more about Mr. Khashoggi. But I had the opportunity to speak with him a bunch of times. And something that struck me about our conversations is Mr. Khashoggi was someone who had been in government, who had always been around the echelons of government in Saudi Arabia, and his thinking seemed to be informed by a growing sense of unfamiliarity. This regime that he knew quite well,
it gets better,
was more unpredictable, and it was going in a direction that he didn't necessarily like, and he was vocal about his criticism in that sense. But he never really saw himself as a dissident. He was perhaps a critic.
Well, that's what I was about to put that to you, because he wasn't calling for regime change. He supported the 2030 vision for Saudi society put forth by Mohammed bin Salman. It does seem extraordinary if the narrative we're kind of getting is true, that he would be targeted when he wasn't really that vociferous a critic.
Something that I directed this question to one of my Turkish contacts. asking if this narrative is true, why Mr. Khashoggi would be targeted. Something that's been hitting the news recently is that Mr. Khashoggi was working on a pro-democracy think tank, and he's been meeting with Gulf-based donors, with activists. I think the organization's name was going to be DAWN, and it was incorporated in Delaware, Democracy for the Arab World Now. If that is the case, considering that he was also previously an editor-in-chief for a newspaper owned by Al-Walid bin Talal, the billionaire who was part of the Ritz-Carlton arrests, perhaps that made him a liability for the Saudi regime. But otherwise, this is beyond the best of our imaginations. Mr. Khashoggi is a very well-known Saudi journalist. The fact that he would vanish and potentially in this grisly way, it's impossible to wrap our heads around it, obviously.
Now, Turkey is caught between a rock and a hard place in this.
So, Dawn, the Democracy for the Arab World Now. This clip only came to me this morning, so I haven't had a chance to look into Dawn. But that's something I hadn't heard about in the reporting.
No, it's news to me.
So, there's a lot.
I keep thinking of the Four Seasons song.
Dawn. No, that's Tie a Yellow Ribbon.
No, it's just Dawn. Da, 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 da.
No, but Dawn with Tony Orlando.
No, Dawn. Look up.
No, let's not. Let's not. No.
Four Seasons.
No.
Frankie Valli.
No, let's not. I desperately need to deconstruct Kanye.
Well, wait a minute. You never finished this thing with Khashoggi.
Oh, I thought that was it. I was done. I was wrapped. That's all we got.
I don't think that was much of a wrap.
I said all I have. We will wait to see what's going to happen with the Magnitsky Act. We already did that.
But what do you think, though?
I don't know. I as I said, I don't know anything about Dawn. This came in late this morning. I need to look into that. But I can see where
the guy was a spook.
Yes, well, I think that's pretty obvious.
I really doubt that Salman. How dumb is this guy if he's going to go bring a guy in and chop him up at the embassy? I mean, there's millions of ways. The assassins can do it and throw you off a roof. I mean, there's a million ways to do it. Shoot you from a distance.
If you want to. Oh no, I totally agree. If you're going to kill somebody, then and make it look like an accident. Do it the way we usually do: 2 to the head, and then
or a small
gun in the left hand. Yeah, small hot tub. I mean, lots of good ways to do it.
This just doesn't make any sense in this, unless now there's one. I just want to say this before we go on. There was one kind of more of a alternative idea, which is that Salman is part of the mob that's now running Saudi Arabia, and this was a message. But even if it was a message, where they would have. It wasn't much of a message because he just kind of disappeared.
No, this embassy. I think this embassy back and forth business, and I agree with you that it's sketchy about the proving the divorce as the reason for it. That's what spooks do. Embassies are where spooks live. Has no one watched The Americans? Come on, we all know this.
Yeah, they're all in there. So why did you have to bring 15 more guys in?
Well,
isn't it crawling with spooks now?
But I think he was a spook. Maybe he was transporting something from the embassy in London to the embassy in Turkey. I don't know.
That sounds more believable than anything. As crazy as that, it's not even crazy. That actually makes sense.
Yeah, maybe he's just shuttling stuff back and forth. Hey, he worked for the Washington Post. Lots of spies have and I allege, currently do work for the Washington Post. This isn't, and why would a guy who's, as you pointed out in the newsletter, is Muslim Brotherhood, was connected to Osama bin Laden, and they could have really asked him to pen a little column about his relationship with Osama bin Laden. No, so he's heralded as a fantastic. This guy, oh yeah, he was one of their sources, I'm sure. This guy sounds like a spook, and then
he may have been.
And then what did we get? We gave a spook away. We got a spook back with the pastor. This pastor spook, journalist spook. Podcaster spook.
Yeah, we don't have any podcaster spooks. They'd be making more money.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Well, you never know. All right. Okay.
So I think that's the wrap. I think that's the wrap.
Okay. Now we're going to go to. I do have a Kanye clip too.
Yes, it's going to be number 3 in the sequence. Because this was very. By the
way, I enjoyed this Kanye stuff more than anything.
Good, because
I really enjoyed the whole everybody getting all bent out of shape. and I'm going to preface the whole thing that you're going to do with, who cares? It's Kanye. He's him and Trump kind of like each other. So what?
What I found interesting is, well, obviously it was two sides. It started with immediate name calling. That's part of what your clip is. And really just little bits and bites of what happened in the Oval Office. And what was shown and what people responded to was almost kind of appropriate, although not the way it was presented. But only on this show can you actually sit down and listen to what Kanye said, because all those little sound bites, all those little bits were picked from one long soliloquy, which not only does it make sense, not only is it no agenda thinking, he's even saying some things that you have specifically bitched about on this show. And it was an eye opener. And so now I really am starting to think that certainly CNN and Don Lemon and whoever else really don't want anyone to listen to what Kanye said. And you have to listen to the whole thing. And I sat, twice. I watched this half hour just trying to understand what he was saying. And it's really not, it's actually quite smart. And it's the stuff we talk about all the time. And, if the news media, whether they're lazy and just like, it's just Kanye being crazy, and so let's just assume he's nuts, or they do not want people to know what he said. And I think that's important. I'm just going to set it up. Your clip is number 3.
I want to say this, that I think that they are a little lazy, and I don't think they care what he has to say, because if you're on the globalist side of the debate, all this stuff is nuts.
John, if they don't care, why didn't they just marginalize him and just not talk about him? Why all the outrage? Why the insane conversations about him?
That's the dynamics of the news business. If one person makes a big stink about it, he's also a target. Kanye's an important celebrity, and he's in there violating the unspoken black rule. Okay, go on. Right. I'm just saying, I think it just became a story.
I think there's a story here. We'll start with pretty much CNN, Wolf Blitzer. This is part of the clip everyone's seen with Don Lemon. I just wanted to pay attention to what snippets they pull out to discuss with their panel about what Kanye was saying and doing in the Oval Office. So here is their little edit.
If he don't look good, we don't look good. This is our president. He has to be the freshest, the flyest planes, the best factories, and we have to make our core be empowered. We have to bring jobs into America. I don't answer questions in simple sound bites. You are tasting a fine wine. It has multiple notes to it. The liberal will try to control a black person through the concept of racism because they know that we are very proud, emotional people. So when I said I like Trump to like someone that's liberal, they'll say, oh, but he's racist. You think racism can control me? Oh, that don't stop me. That's an invisible wall. Would you build a trap door that if you mess up and you accidentally something happens, you fall and you end up next to the Unabomber? Let me give this guy a hug right here.
Now, when you hear this sequence, and of course, my ears perked up mainly because he said, you fall through a trap door and you land next to the Unabomber. I'm like, wow. This
Professor.
It sounds completely unhinged the way they've put this together. And what was kind of like a double wink, I think, is when Kanye says, I'm like a fine wine. You got to all these different notes. I don't have that in one of my clips. What he actually said was,
he said it in there.
That he said, but he said what he said before that was, I don't speak in sound bites. I'm like a fine. So
now you do.
That's exactly what happened. So now they bring in Don Lemon to discuss this, and Don says exactly what I thought.
I love this guy right here. Yeah, him in. Yes.
He did most of the talking in the Oval Office. Don, what did you think?
Wolf. I have no animosity for Kanye West. I'm just going to be honest, and I may get in a lot of trouble for it. I actually feel bad for him. What I saw was a minstrel show today. Him in front of all of these white people, mostly white people.
Now, let's just discuss for a second minstrel show. This is, in essence, calling him an Uncle Tom. Am I correct in...
Worse.
Now, minstrel shows, I believe, were white people who put on black... Although it did also include black people. It was white.
Actually began with black people putting on blackface. If you saw the Broadway play Shuffle Along,
you know about this. This is Al Jolson time, right? You know about this stuff.
Well, this is pre-Al Jolson.
All right.
If you saw this, the minstrel shows were black people putting on blackface and playing blacks.
Stupid blacks, exaggerated stupidness. Yeah.
And they would do a whole act, a whole routine. It was a very interesting era.
Was it funny?
And then the whites said, "Hey, we can do the same thing," and so they put on the blackface, and they got, they could go to better venues, and so pretty soon the blacks were marginalized. But it's an insult, is what it is. It's a big insult. And they don't even, of course, they failed to mention the whole time that Jim Brown.
I got Jim Brown. I got Jim Brown.
Jim Brown is one of the most famous black men in history, recent history, for his exploits as probably the greatest running back in the history of football, and he was a famous actor.
I have some Jim Brown clips from this meeting as well, because this was a very...
Well, the way I understand it, Jim Brown never said anything.
Jim Brown said several things.
I was misled.
You know what? I'll do Jim Brown right now for you. So here's it. Now he doesn't speak very loudly, old Jim Brown, but here's what he said.
It's my honor, Jim. I want to tell you, I've been a fan of yours for a long time. And nobody like you. Nobody like you. No athlete like you.
Well, you know why I'm here? I'm here to serve.
Yeah, it's really nice, man.
I'm not here to ask for anything. I'm here to contribute.
And that's always been the way Jim has been.
So Jim Brown, which I think is a nice statement, says, I'm here to serve. I'm not asking for anything. I'm here to help out. Tell me how I can help, Mr. President. Gee, you didn't see that on TV? Jim Brown also had something to say. I was
misled.
Also had something to say about North Korea.
It's great to have you, Jim.
It's good to be here, Mr. President.
It's great to be here. These are two friends of mine, and Kanye's been a friend of mine for a long time. And Jim came out of nowhere, and he said, I like what the president's doing. A long time ago, we met, right? And I just appreciate it.
Jim Brown, Uncle Tom!
Very much. And
try saying that
if you look at the employment numbers, if you look at the median income, if you look at every single indicator, we're keeping our promise, Jim.
You're right. Fantastic. But I like the North Korea thing.
I like North Korea, too.
So that you're a strong man.
Yeah. Well, he's turned out to be good. Dialogue. We had a little dialogue.
So, C-SPAN had the best audio. Their audio guys are pretty good. Damn cameras are making a huge racket. So first he says, I like the North Korea guy, I think he says. Says, yeah, this is very good. This is good dialogue, Jim Brown says. He's encouraging the president. There's good dialogue.
And the Secretary of State just came back. Mike just came back from North Korea. We had very good meetings, and we'll meet again, but we're doing good. No more nuclear testing, no more missiles.
Trump's got to take his little credits here.
Going up, no more nothing.
Yeah.
That's okay.
That was headed to war.
So Jim Brown says, looks like we were almost in war.
To me, it seemed like it was that close.
Yep, it was so close.
Scared to death.
I spoke to President Obama. I will tell you that was headed to war. And now it's going to be, I believe it's going to work out very well.
And stop the war.
We will stop. We will save millions of lives. Seoul has 30 million people.
Yeah, I left this in just so you could hear that Trump was, he was pontificating.
Realize how big. 30 million people right near the border, 30 miles off the border. Yeah. Millions of people would have been killed. And I don't say anything solved.
We solved one of his biggest problems. Yeah. We solved one of the biggest problems.
Yeah. Jim Brown says, we solved one of the biggest problems. All right, so you didn't see that on the news. Why would you? It's just Jim Brown. He doesn't matter. His opinion doesn't matter. And I love being able to do this, and this is going to be a little longer than normal just because we can't do what the mainstream media did with Kanye's, chop him into bits, because then you don't understand what he's saying. Once you understand what he's saying, then we never have to do it again. But let's go back.
I think that there's a connection between the bone saw references and chopping people into bits and chopping Kanye into bits.
I sure hope not, because I believe that he is purposely being suppressed with what he's saying, because it's very important what he's saying. So I fear for his life.
They don't want the black community to hear it.
Kanye West. I'm just going to be honest, and I may get in a lot of trouble for it. I actually feel bad for him. What I saw was a minstrel show today. Him in front of all of these white people, mostly white people, embarrassing himself and embarrassing Americans, but mostly African Americans, because every one of them is sitting either at home or with their phones watching this, cringing. I couldn't even watch it. I had to turn the television off because it was so hard to watch.
Okay. So because Don just couldn't watch it, the journalist that he is, he missed, I guess, what Kanye was actually saying and just has an opinion without having watched it. And anyone at home, any African American with a phone is disgusted, is horrified by this. So
By the way,
I went to what?
Just quick, Zephyr just went by. Okay, go on.
And only you can do that, John.
Sorry. Just so people can write down the time.
Every black American with a phone was embarrassed by this. So I went to my favorite Opus One YouTube channel, which has 1.2 million subscribers. It is my go-to. It is a black YouTube channel. Let's pull up a couple of clips real briefly. Here's Shabazz, the OG Shabazz.
Yizzo, what's poppin'?
What's poppin', bro?
I'm not even making no statement. I'm going to ask a couple questions. Is the disdain with Kanye about what he says, meaning is he lying about things that he say? Is he not making sense? Do we have a problem with what he's saying? Or is the major problem the fact that he has aligned himself and continues to put himself in the presence and in the midst of Donald Trump? What's the real issue with Kanye?
So that's one voice. Let's hear from another fine black American.
Peace, family. Brother Reeves Islam here. While I'm studying this interview with Kanye West and Donald Trump, I want us to understand something. Do not allow the hat to mislead you. Do not allow that to mislead you. Do not allow him saying, oh, I love Trump and all this dancing and Sam Bowen and shucking and jiving to mislead you. Remember, there is a strategy when it comes to dealing with the system of white supremacy. There's a strategy when it comes to this. Remember the spook who sat by the door. Remember Nat Turner. There was a system. So what if Kanye is finessing the president? What if he is finessing the White House? What if he is saying he's going to pretend to do all of this nonsense and look like one of the worst goddamn hypocrites on the planet just so that he can gain his access? Because now the president has given him the presidential stamp of approval. Donald Trump told him that he could speak on his behalf wherever and whenever. He wants to get Larry Hoover brought out of prison. What would that do for Chicago? He wants to go after other political prisoners. What would that do?
So there's a name I hadn't heard, and it came up with a couple of real gangsters on this Opus One YouTube channel. They heard him talk about it.
I just want to say, Kanye West is not crazy. He sat in front of the president of the United States and said, free Larry Hoover. Y'all niggas is pussy. Kanye West said, free Larry Hoover. Yeah, nigga, free. Yo, I'm from East St. Louis, Illinois. Kanye West said free Larry Hoover to Donald Trump. Yeah. And y'all niggas is mad at him? Yeah. And y'all niggas is coming at that nigga? Y'all niggas is stupid. Every celebrity that's coming at Kanye West is stupid. He might be a little off. Yeah. He really might be a little off in some shit. But free Larry Hoover. Man, free Larry, man. Free Larry, man. Y'all niggas fucked up. Y'all niggas really need to check yourselves, man.
All right, so we will get into who Larry Hoover is after we go back to the incredible disdain from CNN in particular. Which clip did you have now, John?
Well, I have the clip where just another one of the many. I had a choice of a bunch of clips, but the one which I thought was the absolute worst, which was a low point at CNN, where a black analyst, one of the many that they have on their roster, comes out and just lays into Kanye in the worst possible way.
And this is a grand display of mass ignorance in the face of the downfall of democracy. And we have a white and a black man joined together at the narcissistic hip who refuse to understand that they are more a roadblock than a road to real democracy in our country. This is white supremacy by ventriloquism. A black mouth is moving, but white racist ideals are flowing from Kanye West's mouth. Yeah. Kanye West is engaging in one of the most nefarious practices yet. A black body and brain are the warehouse for the articulation and expression of anti-black sentiments that have been chin-checked by people with far more rigorous credentials.
Now, I don't know about you, and I have no standing being a white American, but I heard Black America talk on the Opus One channel, and I'd say this guy is the Uncle Tom.
Well, he's obviously a stooge for the CNN white management. It's not run by a white guy. I mean, a black guy. It's run by a white guy.
So I'll go back to Don Lemon, because I think he really set the tone. He is the voice of Black America now, according to
him.
According to him. Just so you can hear how he shames Kanye, because of course he's crazy. I think Don Lemon kind of started the Kanye is mentally ill vibe. We'll just go back to that, and then we'll get into what Kanye actually said.
Him sitting there being used by the President of the United States, the President of the United States exploiting him, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way, exploiting someone who needs help, who needs to back away from the cameras, who needs to get off stage, who needs to deal with his issues. And if anyone around him cares about him, the family that he mentioned today, or whomever, his managers, maybe some other people who are in the music business who know him, they need to grab him and snatch him up and get Kanye together, because Kanye needs help. And this has nothing to do.
And but Don is giving white America and white news cable show America license to repeat this, which is what happened incessantly over the weekend.
With being liberal or conservative. This is to do with honesty. And we have to stop pretending, sitting here on these CNN panels or on whatever network panels, and pretending like this is normal. And let's have this conversation about Kanye West and what he said. Who cares? Why are you sending cameras to the Oval Office for Kanye West? Did you send cameras to the Oval Office and carry it live?
Actually, I didn't clip that, but there's a part where Trump said, everyone wanted to be here, and the press, this press is in there on video saying, yeah, we wanted to see this. We didn't want to see any other meeting. So yeah, of course they wanted that. It's crazy town.
When Common visited the White House, and did a beautiful poem. Spoken word.
A poem.
Talked about how black people are kings and queens. How we need to
that's what we need.
Rise up and do better. He didn't disparage anybody.
Yeah, I don't hear the kids on Opus One talking about Common and his poem.
He didn't
Hold on a second. Stop. Back it up a little bit. He's talking about Common and his poem, like, okay. Then he said he didn't disparage anybody. Did Kanye disparage people?
I do not believe so in everything I've seen. No.
Well, then what's he talking about?
It's the same. Well, Trump is a racist, disparages.
All right, go.
Beautiful poem. Spoken word. Talked about how black people are kings and queens, how we need to rise up and do better. He didn't disparage anybody. He didn't speak in non sequiturs. He didn't do anything awful. And the only people who criticized him and the only people who really covered it were Sean Hannity and his band of hypocrites who are now applauding Kanye West, the same people that many in that group called the N-word because of Taylor Swift and because of George Bush. And now all of a sudden,
he's rambling.
Yeah, he's going to wrap it up. But he just has to get one more insult.
The person who represents the African-American community, he doesn't. We need to take the cameras away from Kanye and from a lot of this craziness that happens in the White House, because it is not normal, and we need to stop sitting here pretending that it's normal. This was an embarrassment. Kanye's mother is rolling over in her grave.
Oh, yeah, that's the lowest. Now you can't go much lower than that.
Recently, didn't she?
Yeah, and it affected him a lot. So good work, Don Lemon. I'm revoking.
Why is Don Lemon even working at this operation?
Because he's the guy that will set the tone that is desired. I can't see it any other way. That is the desired tone. He's black, therefore he has standing. He can say whatever he wants.
He's gay, which is a plus.
That's super plus, exactly. Okay, so the backdrop is we've got Jim Brown sitting there. And all that conversation with Jim Brown that happened mainly in the beginning, before Kanye even got into his, because that launched pretty quick. But first 5 minutes, just Jim Brown talking about North Korea and Trump and just want to be here to serve, Mr. President. And then Kanye, he's not there alone. No, he has Larry Hoover's lawyer with him. Jared's also in this meeting, which no one mentioned. Larry Hoover was arrested in Chicago for drugs. And initially it was just a minor offense, but then after 17 years, he was rearrested because apparently he had not only run a criminal gang from jail, but he had called out a hit on some rival gang member who was killed, and then he got a 6-time life sentence. But in the 17 years after the initial incarceration, he was really organizing Chicago, and he was trying to better his life. I wasn't there. I'm just telling you what the story is on Larry Hoover. And so then he got, the guy's now 68 and has been in jail for quite a while. And you hear that black kids on the YouTube Opus One channel, they know who Larry Hoover is. They see him as some kind of hero. Is it because he was a drug dealer, or was it because he was trying to do something good? And this is why Kanye is actually there, which is not mentioned. We know that Kim Kardashian successfully got someone out of jail, pardoned, the woman who was on a minor drug offense. So now let's pick up the story at the beginning of this meeting.
Yeah, we got Larry Hoover's lawyer with us today, and it's a prisoner that we're focused on. He has 6 life sentences, and they have him next to the Unabomber doing 23 and 1s.
So now you know the reference to the Unabomber. He's in the same facility as
so they take that completely out of context. And by the way, there was no mention of Larry Hoover on any of the CNN reports.
You think? No, it's more important to show Don Lemon saying his mom is rolling over in her grave. Larry Hoover is an interesting story. I've never heard of Larry Hoover. I'm just learning about it.
That means
what did he do, Larry? What did he do?
Why is he in?
Yes, tell me. Tell us.
Allegedly, it's for conspiracy from.
This is Hoover's lawyer.
Prison, from state prison. It's alleged. But we do believe, even if he did commit those crimes, the sentence was overly broad and too.
What was the sentence?
6 consecutive life sentences in the most secure prison in the world, also known as a clean version of hell, for basically an economic crime.
What prison is that? Name the prison.
ADX Supermax in Florence, Colorado. They house the Unabomber, Al-Qaeda operatives, mass killers, Oklahoma City bomber, things of that nature.
How old is he? How old?
68.
He's 68 years old?
Yeah, 68 years old.
And really the reason why they imprisoned him is because he started doing positive for the community. He started showing that he actually had power, that he wasn't just one of a monolithic voice, but he could wrap people around. So there's theories that there's infinite amounts of universe and there's alternate universe. So it's very important for me to get Hoover out, because in an alternate universe, I am him.
Now, this may sound unhinged, but we have spoken about this specifically. Alternate universes, and yes, in a different dimension, I think would be more correct. In scientific terms, I'm you and you're me. There's a dimension where that's taking place. Isn't that the theory of quantum something?
Well, actually, the theory is there's probably an infinite number of
Correct.
things that can be going on.
Right.
And every decision you make could have gone off in a different direction, and it actually has.
So this is a almost a religious philosophy Kanye has, which he's mentioned multiple times, of course, is laughed at. I don't laugh because we talk about alternate universes in a different context, but not that dissimilar. What he's saying is, in some other universe, I'm in jail and he's me, and I have a duty to go and help this guy. It's just a humanity thing, but it's Kanye, so you have to think and listen to what the guy's saying.
And I have to go and get him free, because he was doing positive inside of Chicago, just like how I'm moving back to Chicago, and it's not just about...
I didn't know Kanye was moving back to Chicago.
Yeah, that was mentioned.
Yeah, but it was news that he was moving back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
getting on stage and being an entertainer and having a monolithic voice that's forced to be a specific party. People expect that if you're black, you have to be Democrat. I've had conversations that basically said that welfare is the reason why a lot of black people end up being Democrat. They say,
now you got to stay with him. That's why it doesn't work when it's chopped up. So he's segueing into something else, but it all comes around at the end with a mind-blowing reveal.
First of all, it's a limit to amount of jobs. So the fathers lose the jobs, and they say, we'll give you more money for having more kids in your home. And then we got rid of the mental health institutes in the 80s and the 90s, and the prison rates just shot up.
Have we not discussed that specifically?
Yeah, we discussed Reagan shutting down the ones in the 80s.
Yeah,
in California, because it was a demand of the. I would just as a reminder, They keep still telling the same stories.
No,
I was here during that era. I was going to high school and college, and I remember the era because it was the liberals going, oh, my God, these mental health facilities, and they always cite Agnew State Hospital in San Jose, or they're horrible. And then when the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest movie came out, oh, they're horrible. We got to shut them down. It's terrible. This is not the way to treat the mentally ill. And so Reagan comes in as a Republican. He says, that's what you guys want? Okay, we're shutting them down. And they shut all of them down. And then there's been nothing but complaining ever since.
And the part that you and I have never been able to come up with, because we're not black, is that black arrests shot through the roof because of this. And so bear in mind the Unabomber, all the stuff, it comes to the end with Kanye.
Black people end up being Democrat. They say, first of all, it's a limit to amount of jobs. So the fathers lose the jobs, and they say, we'll give you more money for having more kids in your home. And then we got rid of the mental health institutes in the 80s and the 90s, and the prison rates just shot up. And now you have Chirac, what people call Chirac, which is actually our murder rate is going down by 20% every year. I just talked to the superintendent, met with Michael Sachs, that's Rahm's right-hand man.
Oh, my God. They met with him? They must be crazy. Why'd they entertain that fool?
So I think it's the bravery that helps you beat this game called life. They tried to scare me to not wear this hat, my own friends, but this hat, it gives me power in a way. My dad and my mom separated, so I didn't have a lot of male energy in my home. And also, I'm married to a family that, not a lot of male energy going on. It's beautiful, though.
Of course, he's kind of winking to Bruce Jenner there. I mean, Caitlyn. So I understand where he's coming from. I didn't have a lot of male energy in my household. So I hear what he's saying. When you put it all together, what he said, this next bit becomes relevant.
But there's times where, it's something about, I love Hillary. I love everyone, right? But the campaign, I'm with her, just didn't make me feel as a guy that didn't get to see my dad all the time, like a guy that could play catch with his son.
Now, is this not something we explicitly discussed when that slogan came up? I'm with her. It's like, that's kind of alienating.
We discussed the fact that I'm with her is not a campaign.
And to Kanye, it meant, well, I don't feel good about that. I want to be with daddy. He's literally saying that. And I can understand that he felt that way. This is not a crazy thing to say. And he said, I love Hillary, but I didn't feel good about it. I didn't want to be with her. I missed the male energy in his life or in the world, whatever it is.
It was something about when I put this hat on, it made me feel like Superman. You made a Superman. That's my favorite superhero. And you made a Superman cape for me also as a guy that looks up to you, looks up to Ralph Lauren, looks up to American industry guys. Non-political, no bullshit. Put the beep on it, however you want to do it, 5 seconds delay, and just goes in and gets it done. Right now, you gave me the heart to go to Adidas because...
Now, it sounds like he's just talking self-promotion about himself when he talks about Adidas and his shoe deal.
Let it play.
Okay, good.
At Adidas, when I went in 2015, we were a $14 billion company, losing $2 billion a year. Now we have a $38 billion market cap. It's called the Yeezy effect.
This guy's clearly mentally insane. He knows market caps. I mean, he's got to be a nut job.
And I went to Casper. We had a meeting in Chicago.
Mattress company.
And I said, you have to bring manufacturing onshore, not even shore, into the core. It's not about the borders, the core of Adidas. And Chicago is the core of Middle America. We have to make Middle America strong. So I had the balls, because I had enough balls to put on this hat. I mean, this Adidas thing made me a billionaire, and I could have lost $200 million walking away from that deal. But even with that, I knew it was more important for me to take the chance of walking away from that deal than to have no fathers in Chicago with no homes. And when we do have prison reformation, because it's habilitation, not rehabilitation, because we didn't have the abilities in the first place. We never had anyone that taught us. We didn't teach us. Exactly. We ain't had no one that taught us.
So there's something very important what he says there. He's mimicking what black Americans will say. Well, nobody taught us because our dads went there. He's mimicking that, but he's saying some good stuff.
Right? So it's more important than any specific deal, anything that we bring jobs into America and that we provide a transition with mental health and the American education curriculum that Jim has worked on. Larry Hoover also has a curriculum that he's worked on. We have Montessori curriculums that we worked on. WeWorks has a beautiful curriculum. The Waldorf establishment has a curriculum. We have meditation. There's a lot of things affecting our mental health that makes us do crazy things that puts us back into that trap door called the 13th Amendment.
Now, this blew me the fuck away. I'm sorry to use that word. When he said the trap door of the 13th Amendment, I'm like, what is he talking about? Let's not give it away. We'll read the 13th Amendment in a moment after Kanye gets to it.
I did say abolish with the hat on, because why would you keep something around that's a trap door? If you're building a floor, the Constitution is the base of our industry, right? Of our country, of our company. Would you build a trap door that if you mess up and you accidentally something happens, you fall and you end up next to the Unabomber?
Okay. The 13th Amendment, for those who don't know what it is or those who have forgotten, the 13th Amendment, Section 1, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So, what that means is, and you've brought this up, we've bitched about this many times, that in the United States, slavery is legal. If you're incarcerated, you become a slave of the state. And you're making 25 cents a day, and you're working for IKEA, you're working for... how many?
Right, which is again, the famous Dutch saying, I am what I say you are.
Wat je zegt ben jezelf, met je kop door de helft.
Which is what we do with China. We constantly harp on, China's got slave labor. They have all these prisoners, they're slave labor. We're the ones that have actual corporations that are involved. that are involved in slave labor in the prison system. There's corporations you can invest in that benefit from the slave labor of our prison system.
And as I said, companies like...
By the way, just to stop again, I don't mind the prisoners being forced to do stuff like clean up the roads. Maybe there's like the litter on along Highway 80 in California. There's a bunch of litter and nobody picks it up. I don't mind putting a chain gang out there, but you have to pay them.
Yes, and what is happening, as you said, there are companies, and I'm pretty sure when you brought it up, IKEA was one of the companies, or they were making flat pack furniture, all kinds of stuff. And American corporations go to the Correctional Corporation of America and hire this labor force. And so Kanye is saying that the 13th Amendment has a trap door because, yes, while it says no one can be a slave, but if you mess up, and he's going to explain exactly how cruel this really was, if you mess up, then you fall through the trap door right into slavery because of the 13th Amendment's trap door, which is you can be a slave in the United States if you're incarcerated for a crime you've been convicted of.
You got to remove all that trap door out of the relationship. The four gentlemen that wrote the 13th Amendment, and I think the way the universe works, it's perfect. We don't have 13 floors, do we? So the four gentlemen that wrote the 13th Amendment didn't look like the people they were amending. Also, at that point, it was illegal for blacks to read or African Americans to read. And so that meant if you actually read the amendment, you get locked up and turned to a slave. Again, so what I think is we don't need...
He's crazy, I tell you. He doesn't know what he's talking about. His mom's rolling over in her grave.
We need pardons. We need to talk to people. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I was connected with a neuropsychologist that works with the athletes in the NBA and the NFL. And he looked at my brain. It's equal on 3 parts. I'm going to go ahead, drop some bombs for you. 98 percentile IQ test. I had a 75 percentile of all human beings, but it was counting 8 numbers backwards after it was repeating. So I'm going to work on that one. The other one's 98% Tesla, Freud.
Tesla intelligence man. He had it measured. He's genius, and it's obvious he's genius because
you could see Trump liking this guy. They're very similar.
So he's going to wrap it up with this whole 13th Amendment thing and Larry Hoover and everything and that's really the whole thing. It's just almost done.
So he said that I actually wasn't bipolar. I had sleep deprivation, which could cause dementia 10 to 20 years from now, where I wouldn't even remember my son's name. So all this power that I got, and I'm taking my son to the Sox game and all that, I wouldn't be able to remember his name from a misdiagnosis. And what we need is we can empower the pharmaceuticals and make more money. That's one thing. I've never stepped into a situation where I didn't make people more money. So we can empower pharmaceuticals. We can empower our industries. We can empower our factories. We can bring not only Adidas on shore, we can bring Foxconn to set up a factory in, I think, Minnesota. 53,000.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, in Wisconsin. They have 4,000 jobs, people making $53,000 a year. And one of the things we got to set is Ford to have the highest design, the dopest cars, the most amazing. I don't really say dope. I don't say negative words and try to flip them. We just say positive, lovely, divine, universal words. So the flyest, freshest, most amazing car. And what we want to start with is I brought a gift with me right here.
He says GIF. He means a GIF. And so now this is the famous, he's opening his cell phone. But you hear what he's saying. We need to have the flyest stuff. It's all got to be the best in America.
This right here is the iPlane 1. It's a hydrogen-powered airplane. And this is what our president should be flying in. Look at this, Jared.
Look at this, Jared. So he hands his iPhone to Jared. Jared's like, ooh.
Let's get rid of Air Force One. Can we get rid of Air Force One? No, you don't like that.
Well, we're going to have Apple, an American company, work on this plane with. But you know what I don't like about? It's not that I don't like. What I need Saturday Night Live to improve on, or what I need the liberals to improve on is, if he don't look good, we don't look good. This is our president. He has to be the freshest, the flyest planes, the best factories, and we have to make our core be empowered. We have to bring jobs into America because our best export is entertainment and ideas. But when we make everything in China and not in America, then we're cheating on our country. And we're putting people in positions to have to do illegal things to end up in the cheapest factory ever, the prison system.
There you go. The cheapest factory ever, the prison system. I think Kanye is a prophet.
I think definitely has the bipolar thing. He's manic. I think it was a Shaggy Dog story.
Yep.
With a punchline. It was very well done. I think he could have left the plane thing out. I think that hurt him.
Well, the whole way he speaks hurts him because it's so clip-worthy for just these little clips of him being sounding insane.
I would love to get a hold of that thing and clip it together to make him sound like a complete lunatic.
Well, just listen to CNN today. You'll be fine.
Well, I know. I think that they probably could have done even better a job.
Yeah, well, they had to do it quick. They had to do it quick.
Yeah, I mean, if you spend a little time, you could really have something very funny. But yeah, I think the guy is a genius. I've always thought he was. I think Taylor Swift's a genius.
Yeah.
These people that do this sort of marketing, and they market themselves a lot, and they do investments. Pete Diddy's another one, whatever his name is nowadays.
Sean Combs.
Yeah, he's another one. These guys are extremely intelligent. They really know how to do marketing, and they know how to invest. None of them are poor. And they don't seem to be getting poor. I mean, compared with the same kind of professional athletes that don't have quite the intelligence, not to say that most of them don't, some of them do, but when they have a lot of money, they end up broke. Right. These guys will never end up broke. I mean, if they do, it's because they gave it away, but not because it was stolen from them.
So in review, people really got gypped, sorry to use that term, shortchanged on what Kanye did. And certainly the black Americans got shortchanged by the news media who was supposed to be serving them. Could someone have just listened and don't even show a clip, just say, well, he was talking about the 13th Amendment, Larry Hoover, and how really Democrats agree on the there's too many people in prisons. But no, they don't want black people to hear what Kanye has to say. I'm glad. I learned a lot. I went to Opus One. I'm like, oh, what is this? This is how I learned this stuff. No, that can't be done by Don Lemon, who had to turn the sound down because he was so offended. That's offensive. That's actually racist. It's like keeping the black man down. Way to go, Don. And everybody did it. It was
their job.
It was unbelievable.
Well, black man keeps himself down a lot of times. When we lost our one of our listeners, the Incognegro.
Yeah, we lost him.
Because he was irked by a deconstruction we did, which was critical of Hillary.
Well, so that had nothing to do with race then. Anyway.
No, but it has to do with what Kanye was talking about, which is that if you're black, you have to be a Democrat.
Anyway, I fear for Kanye because it's so easy to get rid of this guy. I don't think they have to do it now because they've marginalized him. But, you know, when you hear these kids on YouTube, that's 1.2 million subscribers. You know, people may just start to listen. I fear for Kanye if he keeps this up and people start listening to him, it could be bad for his health.
Yeah, but they've done a good job of. I think they've kept him safe. They're keeping him safe.
We're actually endangering him, but I feel pretty good about it. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your courage and say in the morning to you, John C., where the C stands for Combs Dvorak.
In the morning to you, Mr. Adam Curry. In the morning to all ships at sea.
Boots on the ground, feet in the air, subs in the water. Today, Mr. Knights out there.
In the morning to our troll room, NoAgendaStream.com is where the trolls line up and get ready for every single show live. NoAgendaStream.com. You can actually listen live on Sundays and Thursdays. Also, in the morning to Uncle Cave Bear. Uncle Cave Bear brought us the artwork for episode 1076. Title of that was M-Word. And he brought us the zombies of 2030. It was just a great compilation piece of, you know, the global warming killing us all in the background, and we're all just zombies kind of floating around. It's kind of a look into our nearby future. If we bless you, if we don't keep our global warming down by 1.5 degrees. So we appreciate the work that Uncle Cave Bear did there. And all of our artists who, we got a lot of art, actually, on NoAgendaArtGenerator.com.
That was actually quite a bit.
There was quite a bit of art. And funny, too. But we got to choose one. But, also, thanks for the word cloud. A couple people did word clouds. I think you used that in the newsletter. Word cloud.
Yeah, I was hoping it would be a little more.
It was not quite as exciting as I had hoped it would be.
Well, at least somebody could do those. Now, I do have a lot of stuff in the second half of the show about global. I got to follow up to the global warming, but mostly by deconstructing Al Gore, and I found his tell.
You know what I like about this, John? I challenged you to make a non-boring climate report, and I think you've taken the challenge, so I look forward to that.
Well, let me think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
got like 12
8,
clips
9,
here.
10, 11, 12 clips of Al Gore.
I'm thinking it's genius.
Or 10 seconds.
It doesn't matter. You took the challenge, and I appreciate it, and that's why we're a great show. Perhaps the best show.
Well, it is, supposedly. Patrick Funchion, we want to thank him for being the one and only executive producer for show 1077.
Yeah, it was not a great showing, actually, I noticed.
No, it was very poor, very poor. I think people didn't like the last show. 333. And he says, what am I doing? What is this? Check email from Patrick.
I don't know. It's I don't think you need to because everything's in the note as far as I can tell. I think you're good.
I'll check the email and then we'll read it later if it's something that needs to be said. It's Soppet and Sir Pufunk of the Trolls from the Netflix Explorers podcast. Today is Rusty Dutch's birthday, and we would like to add him to the birthday list. We also want to make a donation in his name to push him over the edge for his knighthood. I don't know if he's on there.
Yes, he is.
To the leader of the second best podcast in the universe, No Agenda is obviously number one. For his roundtable request, he would like crack rock and fishing rods, and finally can unite him as Sir Gasket of the region. This is also Adam's first donation. Please give him 2 de-douchings. He only needs 1.
You've been de-douched.
We take it very seriously. We do not do douchey for the humor of it. Jingle request. Any collusion? Whoa, society defining, and my balls was hot.
Okay, so now I understand. Check email, because he had sent these, any collusion, of course, I have. He had sent, whoa, society defining, and my balls was hot, except he sent them on a Google Drive. You clicked on the link, and it said, you need to request access. So I requested access for all of the jingles he sent me, and this morning he had still not granted the access, so I'm sorry I can't play those for you because you didn't do it right.
No, just send them straight up. Don't start using third parties to send us stuff. Why? You can send direct. The email will take an attachment.
I'm limited to 10 megabytes here.
Well, you can send it to me. I'm limited to 50.
Yeah. I couldn't. I have to keep it to 10 because people send me DVDs. Here's this ISO file. Yeah, it's not good. Oh, so we'll do any collusion and we'll give him a karma. And thank you very much. And this knighting is on the list.
Any collusion?
You've got karma.
Is the birthday on the list too?
Yep.
Katie Kavanaugh comes in at $238 from Springfield, Virginia. She is associate executive producer for Show 1077. She writes, our family is so happy to wish Sean Kavanaugh, a.k.a. Mr. C, Snob Square, a happy 38th birthday.
Aw.
He's incredible. He's an incredible man, and we feel blessed every day that he belongs to us. Please play him some Resist Karma to give him a laugh and remind him to resist thoughts that make him forget how truly amazing he is.
Aww.
We love the show and listen all the time. The best part is our 4-year-old often listens with us and now chants, jobs, 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 in a copy of Pelosi, which is always gives us a great laugh.
Kids love the show.
Keep up the good work, and thank you for the birthday shout-out to my best friend. Also credit this towards my husband's future knighthood. Thank you so much, Katie Kavanaugh.
Oh, how incredibly nice. That's a loving, loving spouse.
But resist, we much, we must, and we will much about that be committed.
You've got karma.
Dennis Stevens, Parker, Colorado, 23456. ITM, gents. Been a while since I donated. Recent shows have been excellent. You guys dig up gems that no one else seems to bother to find or doesn't have the balls to talk about.
There you go.
Keep up the great work. NJNK. Adam, my wife and I will be in Austin for the F1 race, and we would love to see you if you can. We can see you if that can be arranged. We will be staying at the Austin East KOA.
Oh, that's the Campgrounds of America.
KOA in their van.
In their camper, of course.
They got a trailer.
Yeah.
Go to the KOA before we head to the track on Thursday. You can have a trailer. Going to the trailer park is fun.
So Thursday. Yeah. Okay. But I think they might have sent me an email. All right. Thank you,
David
Dennis.
Fugazotto in Gladstone, Missouri, 22222. 2 bags of 11s for the best podcast in the universe. Request a birthday shout out for my dear old dad, David Fugazotto Sr., who turned 77 today.
And he still reads
for your courage.
And he still reads the paper without glasses. Amazing.
And that was it. That's all we got.
That's all we got.
The executive and associate executive producer for Show 1077.
So this is how the system works. We just ask you to send us whatever value you got out of the program. So if you like what you hear, you say, well, what was that worth to me? Can you compare it to something? Is there I mean, I think some people say we bring them sanity or they feel calm. I mean, what is a Xanax prescription cost these days? You know, it's like you could just send $50 to the No Agenda Show or more. Depends. This is what you see with our executive and associate executive producers. Starts at $200 for the episode. And these these credits are real, and you can use them anywhere credits are recognized and accepted. We'll gladly back you up. LinkedIn. It does get you jobs. This is a fact. And we'll be thanking everyone else who came in $50 and above in our second segment. Again, thank you so much. Remember, we have another show coming up on Thursday. Support us at
Dvorak.org/NA.
Now that you are completely woke, you can go out and spread the gospel about the prophet.
Our formula is this. We go out, we hit people in the mouth.
Shut up, slave.
Squirrel.
Shut up, slave.
Hey, just a question for our European listeners. Jim Brown, the football player, wasn't he also in some movie, like comedy movie?
Well, he's mostly in westerns. Played the tough guy.
Yeah, wasn't he in something? I want to say like Airplane, but it wasn't that.
Oh, he may have been in Airplane. Yeah, it's possible.
Oh, Police Academy. Police Academy. Thank you, Troll Room. Yeah, Police Academy. That's right.
Jim Brown. I don't know if it was Bubba Smith was in Police Academy.
Oh, wait. No. Hightower. That wasn't Jim Brown, That was Bubba Smith who was Hightower. Mars Attacks, I think he was in that. Dirty Dozen. Was he in Dirty Dozen?
Go look him up. You'll find he did a lot of movies. He was a very famous actor. Did a lot of movies.
Yeah.
And he was a tough guy in real life, so no one's going to call him an Uncle Tom.
He was non-existent.
CNN studio.
He what?
He'd go in there and say, "What did you call me?"
Oh, right, back in the day. Oh yeah.
Today.
Today he would with his cane go beat some Don Lemon ass. Make some lemonade.
And by the way, when we talk about something like this of violence, promoting it, I want to point out that, the Republicans are the ones with the guns. The Democrats are the ones that shouldn't have guns and they should be illegal. We talked about in the last show. But here's Nicole Wallace on.
She's the worst, and she's looking pretty bad.
And called him out.
Yeah,
it would have been a very different.
So I told Jeb Bush after that debate that I thought he should have punched him in the face. I said, even if you lost, he insulted your wife.
Yes.
When he came down the escalator and called Mexicans rapists and murderers. He said, "Well, what do you think I should have done?" I said, "I think you should have punched him in the face and then gotten out of the race. You would have been a hero."
No, he wouldn't.
Adderall. She's on Adderall.
She's on something.
Yeah.
I do have a little entremont.
Okay.
This is Alex Jones. I've got a compilation I put together. This is just one small piece of a very long piece, which I'm going to take clips from every so often.
Humanity will crush you. I love it. They're weak. And the minute we reveal them, their destruction begins.
Now, out of that, I do have a small ISO as a suggestion for end of show.
Okay.
I love it. They're weak.
Done. You're in. You're in. I'm going to lead you into your Al Gore with a little climate change update from the Van Jones show, which I found myself watching a lot of television with the Keeper yesterday.
Van Jones show?
Yeah, Van Jones has a show on CNN.
Wow.
Yes, it's a talk show with an audience, and he's very pleased about it.
Hey, I'm looking forward to tonight, by the way. What's his name? Alex, Alex, what's his last name? I can't remember for some reason. The guy who plays Trump on Saturday Night Live.
Alec Baldwin.
Alec, not Alex. That's what got me. Alec Baldwin's got a talk show, and they're running it on prime time on NBC.
Oh, was there a SNL last night? I didn't even watch.
I didn't know.
Sure there was. I did watch some stuff last night, which will come up later. But here's Van Jones, and he's talking about the report, of course, we're all going to die within 12 years. And he brings on known climate change expert, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Oh, wait, he's an astrophysicist. But it doesn't matter. It's Neil deGrasse Tyson, everybody.
What is the thing that worries you the most about climate?
We've had relatively stable climate. No ice ages, no hot spells, and we've had these ice caps that have remained, primarily in Antarctica and Greenland. Oh my gosh, if you melt those ice sheets in Greenland and Antarctica, the water levels will rise and come to the level of the Statue of Liberty's elbow. Okay.
Her elbow, I tell you.
Well, that's actually better than any of the clips I have from Al Gore. You might as well play clip of the day for that one. Jeez.
Up to her elbow, I tell you. Up to her elbow.
Clip of the day.
What a bunch of bull crap.
Let me play you the rest.
Okay. So we're talking not so much, it's so hot, it's going to kill me. No, we're talking about sea level change.
Water world.
And where are all the greatest cities in the world? They're on the ocean's edge, on the river's edge. My point is,
sorry, Austin's not on the river's edge.
What's going to happen first? The coastal cities will get flooded. You're not going to just see water levels slowly rise. That will happen, but that's not what you're going to notice first. The storm, the swell, that previously only brought the water to here, now breaches your city walls. You'll see it in the extremes of the weather. And this will destabilize the world. And you know who knows about this is the military.
Yeah, the Pentagon has no debate.
Pentagon has no debate. You know who else doesn't have a debate? Insurance companies.
Oh, that doesn't seem to be true.
That doesn't seem to be true.
How about your John? You're right there, one of the great cities of the world, right on the coast. You're going to be up to your elbow in water. Has your insurance changed for your home?
No, not at all.
Oh, well.
In fact, we had a clip in the last show. I think you had it about showing that one of the things, or somebody expressed this, that the insurance companies are the guys that know what they're the ones with the money they can lose, and so they've been insuring it. The only place I know of where I know that there has been an effect is in Biloxi, because that storm that came in, the one 10 years ago, Katrina, I think, is the one that slammed them. It took out all the stuff that was right on the coast, right on the water, and the insurance company says we're not going to pay for any more of this kind of thing. And so now it's all Biloxi's kind of stripped of all these beautiful mansions that used to be on the coastline because no one will build there because the insurance is too high. But that's the only place I know of where this has happened.
Also, yeah. Yes.
Knows about
and
this.
It's not because of rising sea levels. It's because of the possibility of a hurricane strike right there.
Military.
Yeah, the Pentagon has no debate.
Pentagon has no debate. You know who else doesn't have a debate? Insurance companies.
But you're saying our cities are at risk, our civilizations are at risk, you're going to displace a whole bunch of people, and that could cause all kind of wars.
It'll happen faster than you can move the city inland.
We're all going to die!
All right, so just there's proof. Neil deGrasse Tyson says your insurance rates are going up. That is actually frightening, but I don't see any evidence of this happening yet. Neil deGrasse.
No, which is more of this, and this is what Al Gore. So Al Gore comes on to the PBS NewsHour with Judy. And just to give you an idea, I'm going to just clip to this is Al Gore 12 Trapped Energy A.
Okay.
Let's talk about the science you mentioned.
Sorry?
I was just going to say this is kind of an Ask Adam.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the science. You mentioned it. There was this major report from the UN Scientific Panel, the group that you shared a Nobel Peace Prize with, about 10 years ago. They are painting a much more alarming picture of what we face than we had previously known. What is significant to you? What is most significant in this report to you?
The language the IPCC used in presenting it is torqued up a little bit appropriately. How do they get the attention of policymakers around the world? The man-made global warming pollution accumulates in the atmosphere, and it stays there a pretty long time. And it now traps as much extra heat energy every day.
So he's saying it was kind of, to coin a phrase, trumped up to get everyone's attention. He's basically admitting it.
He didn't use the word trumped up.
I coined the phrase.
Yeah, yes.
Trumped up, yes.
But he says, did you hear the end? There is like an open thing. He's going to give you the answer to it. I want you to see if you can I want you to play it again, the end, so we can then play the answer to what he's about to say. In other words, his conclusion. And I want you to try to listen carefully to what he's saying.
Okay, let me go back to 10 seconds. Let's hear.
The man-made global warming pollution accumulates in the atmosphere, and it stays there a pretty long time. And it now traps as much extra heat energy every day.
So I'm not sure what the question is.
Well, that's it. It traps as much energy every day as.
So it's going to be a comparison.
He's going to do a comparison. I want you to note it. I want you to write it down, because every day this is what happens. Play clip B.
And it now traps as much extra heat energy every day as would be released by 500,000 Hiroshima-class atomic bombs exploding every day.
500,000 Hiroshima bombs exploding every day. I thought we had a statistic like that on a clip previously.
Can somebody out there who really wants to do it? I mean, I could do some research and do this. I would like the math on that.
Here, I got something from an old clip. Let me just see what this is.
Has the Earth warmed in the last 18 years or not? Let's hear from both men. Firstly, Dr. Moore.
No, it's going to take too long. There is something else that we had about Hiroshima, but I'll check that clip after the show, see what they said.
I'm going to skip the C clip because it goes on about how it's all sucked up by the ocean, which he talks about. Then he talks about how the ocean is getting so hot that's creating these superstorms. Of course, the first one was that 1 year ago. That then we hadn't had one for 10, but we're not going to count that. Here's another kind of interesting. I like the way he phrases this. I think this is new.
Mm-hmm.
This is clip 11. I think this is a new idea, a new way to put things.
The scientists not only predicted these consequences, they're telling us they're going to get a lot worse still until we stop using the Earth's atmosphere as an open sewer for 110 million tons of man-made global warming pollution every single day.
Wow, man-made global warming pollution is a sewer. What comes out of your pie hole is a sewer.
We have a sewer. We're using the atmosphere as a sewer.
Nice.
I thought that was actually quite good.
I'm going to rename your clip to spell it properly in case we're looking for it again.
Now, let's listen to where I picked up his tell when he's like knows he's lying, and he has a micro expression. I'm going to get into these a little more. In fact, there's a course I might take from the expert on it, and there's a guy in the Bay Area who does this. Micro expressions are these little momentary mistakes you make to give away whether you're telling the truth or not.
Okay.
And they're used by the intelligence agencies and some.
Can you give me an example?
Well, you're going to have an example here.
Okay.
So let's play Al Gore 10 storm. This is Al Gore. Storms get stronger. Not the ISO, but the long clip.
More importantly, the scientific community has long been convinced and has been warning policymakers for some time. The earmarks of this latest storm, Judy, are worth paying attention to. Starting with Hurricane Harvey, which hit Houston, Texas a year ago and dumped 5 feet of rain. We have been seeing a new pattern, and Hurricane Michael intensified as it reached the coast. And that's something relatively new. And the reason for it is the ocean waters are much warmer than normal. So it's not getting cold waters churned up to weaken the storm. It just keeps on getting stronger.
Okay.
Now, of course, this is bullcrap because Florence, which was the storm in between, got weaker.
Yes, it died right off.
Died off and stuck there on the coast of North Carolina.
But if you say it by saying, if you're Al Gore and you say, of course, storms get stronger, then you believe it.
Now, here's the tell. See if you can spot it. This is in the ISO.
Okay.
More importantly, the scientific community has...
the little laugh. Community.
His tell is having an awkward...
chuckle.
Very, very... small chuckle.
Yeah, let me hear it again.
In the middle of a word that he knows is part of a bullshit commentary.
Let's listen again.
More importantly, the scientific community has...
He's laughing about, he's actually laughing at the scientific community. He's like, those assholes. They'll do whatever I tell them. Good catch.
I'll have two more examples of this.
That's what I was going to ask. Yes. Do we have examples? Now I want to hear it.
Well, you'll be able to pick them up. There's one where he actually does it 3 times.
Oh, can you use the tell in a sentence?
The nervous laugh, the way he uses it to me is a tell that this is bullshit. Because you can, when you parse the whole sentence, you start to hear that the assertions are awkward. Now let's try this one. This is the global emergency clip and then the tell in ISO.
We have a global emergency, and you use a phrase like that. And
first of all, I'm going to give you a clip of the show for this. This is fantastic. So he's laughing at his own bullcrap about it being a global emergency.
We have a global emergency, and you use a phrase like that, and some people
think it's bullcrap.
Immediately say, "Okay, calm down. That can't be that bad," but it is. And what the scientists have warned us in this recent report is that if we do not take action quickly to switch away from dirty fossil fuels and shift to electric vehicles and make agriculture and forestry much more sustainable and deal with the waste loops in manufacturing, all things that we can do, we know how to to them. We ought to be doing these things for other reasons anyway. But if we do not begin taking action very quickly and creating jobs in the process, by the way, then the scientists warn us that the consequences down the road would be far, far worse than what we're experiencing now.
Oh, my God.
And could actually extend to an existential threat to human civilization on this planet as we know it.
Wow.
There's 4 tells in there.
Yeah, so we start with the emergency, then what was the second one?
Well, the other one was just casually in there. I mean, there's 4 of them in there, but the biggest one was this one, which I have on ISO.
Would be far, far worse than what we're experiencing now.
There's no reason for that laugh to be in there unless it's a tell.
And yes, that's just not true. It's not going to be far, far worse. Wow.
Now the one I got the biggest clip out of, or biggest clip, I'm sorry, the biggest kick.
It's okay. I like that too.
I got the biggest kick out of this one. Judy says something in the form of a question, and then Al Gore feels obliged to interrupt her because there is this thing going on, and it's actually he gives her a scolding for saying something that you can't say anymore on.
Oh.
And he knows it. You can't say it on PBS NewsHour. You can't say it anywhere. You can't suggest that there's any alternative to his thesis.
Did you know?
Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Play one.
As you know, a number of conservatives, other scientists are saying these dire future predictions are just not borne out by evidence. But the other thing is the political.
Well, hold on. Let me stop you there. When you say other scientists.
These are the wrong scientists? Is that what I'm going to hear?
So he's going to now give her a lecture about why she made a mistake and she should be scolded for even suggesting. And now you're going to hear a number that we like to talk. We like to see our numbers about 97%.
97, 98 is where I like my number.
97 climate scientists, 90 this, 90 that.
Yeah.
All these different things. Gore has taken it up to a new level.
Stop you there. When you say other scientists, not really. There are a few outliers, but 99+% of the scientific community.
And a tell laugh. Oh my goodness.
But 99+% of the scientific community is aligned on these objectives.
Wow. Just let me give you this, just for now. Clip of the day. I disagree. I think the Al Gore stuff is dynamite.
Now here's the thing that is what really bothers me. He does the tell knowing it's bullshit. 99% of the entire scientific community, over 99%. This is nonsense.
99 plus. He said.
Plus. And he does his little tell in the middle, knowing it's a lie.
Yeah.
He knows it's a lie.
We will reach 100% if we have to kill every last one of them.
And so he goes, but then he does this little trick at the end, which I was totally disgusted by this. This is just ridiculous. This isn't the part 3 of this.
Is aligned on these objectives. You still have some people who say the earth is flat and not round, but you don't give them equal time in saying some people say round, some people say flat.
Yeah.
That is so sick.
Don't give them equal time. Don't give any dissenters equal time. Shut up, slave. Just shut up.
So anyway, now this last clip, this is my last clip. These are all nice and short. This is him condemning Trump, and there's a tell in here, and I don't even ISO it. I don't even bother because by now you can spot these a mile away. And here's the tell, and here's him discussing Trump.
His proposal is literally insane, and his reaction to the scientific community's warnings is an outlier reaction. It's making the U.S. come off like a rogue nation. And
oh, God. Yeah, we're a rogue nation. Yeah. This guy needs to be anachronized. Hey, how about that word, huh? How about
the fact that he's even on with this blather, and then he's obviously, to me, lying through his teeth, is just like it was a 12-minute segment on the NewsHour that was uncalled for, unjustified. It was just ridiculous. It had to do with the IPCC report.
Yes,
but
of course.
It gave him this grounds for his little nervous laugh in the middle of things.
Unbelievable.
So, that was that. Anyway, that's my Al Gore.
Very good. I'll just keep it with the Agenda 2030 and climate change for one last one I've got here. This most recent Hurricane Michael came out of nowhere. 48 hours it developed and was in, and then it just died away. It was in a very awkward place. The Panhandle. This is very uncommon for anything like that to happen up there. In fact, I think we got an email from one of our producers. I don't have it here, but there's something now. And I said jokingly, "Oh well, it's time for the midterms. We got some elections going on. We got we have the global warming report is out. We need to create a hurricane. All right, flip on harp. Let's do it here." But the here is what's interesting. This is local radio guy, I think Neil Boots, or he was local from the area, and this is from his radio show.
I went to high school in the Florida Panhandle, Pensacola. Went through a couple of hurricanes while I was there. So mild that we could water ski in the bayou when the hurricane was going on. I know these towns of Panama City and Destin and Mexico Beach. I cannot believe the devastation that has occurred. The third most powerful hurricane, Michael, to ever hit the shoreline of the United States. A lot of people are suffering. A lot of people hurting very badly. I hope you can find the time to help somebody out there. The state of Florida is going to need some help too. You see, the Panhandle is a strong conservative area. It played very big in the 2000 election when they were calling the election for George W. Bush before the polls were even closed. I wonder how many votes that cost. But now, with the election, 25 days away? Will the infrastructure be there for those people in the Panhandle to vote in the Florida elections? You have Rick Scott running against Ben Nelson, who richly deserves to be put out to pasture. He's done nothing. And you have this Andrew Gillum guy running against Ron DeSantis. Andrew Gillum, friend of Bernie Sanders.
This Andrew Gillum, that's one of the biggest contested races that's going on right now. Everyone's talking about this Gillum guy.
Huh.
And so this freak storm, once in a century storm, happens there, and he rightly points out they may not even have infrastructure to vote there. Oh.
Coincidence? I think not.
It's an interesting coincidence.
I think not. It's one of those things. Just go, ah.
Well, there's a couple of things going on. I should mention my my new voter's guide.
Yes, I looked at your voter's guide.
I have if anybody from California, it's for Californians only. I have Dvorak.org/voter single Jew voter guide. I should probably put up a second page.
Hold on. It's guide. Voter guide. Isn't it not .htm?
Yes. How did you know? It's .htm. That's the modern way of doing it.
Give us the URL again.
Dvorak.org/voterguide.htm.
And that's the modern way of doing it.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because it has less letters.
I was waiting 2 days for that answer. You didn't let me down.
Well, you know the funny thing about HTML versus HTML is HTML came out of Microsoft because
Microsoft couldn't handle any
handle an extra letter.
They couldn't handle the four character extension.
During that era, you could not ever, if you had an image that was image.jpg, it would just I don't get it. I can't do it.
I can't open it.
So you had to be JPG.
And I think Front Page and all those programs outputted in .htm in the beginning.
Yeah, they did.
Good times.
And if you go if you go to Word and push
save as web page.
Save as web page. It always saves as HTML, but you can save it .html, and it will save it that way.
Nice.
Reluctantly.
Nice.
But so I decided just to give in and do HTML. So anyways, voterguide.htm. .org, and it's for the propositions only. It's not
now, just so we understand, not every state has. In fact, Texas has no propositions. We do have propositions at the county level, but in California, it's a little different.
California is one of the few states that has these statewide initiatives and propositions.
And this is the kind of democracy that liberals want. Is most votes wins the proposition.
Well, no, it makes yes, exactly. And the proposition, even though they sue them and they do all this other stuff, and in fact, Proposition 9, which was the proposition to, and which is on the list there, the proposition to split the state into 3 pieces, was struck down by a court as an illegal proposition. Even though they went through all this trouble to get it on the ballot, and they took it off the ballot.
Just so the court took it off the ballot.
Yeah, and this
so much for you, voters. Shut up.
So much for you for Tim Draper. That's his proposition.
Gotcha.
And so I went through these propositions because there's 2 or 3 of them, especially the one that really got me is Proposition 8. And Proposition 8 is nothing more than repealing a recent gasoline tax. Let me get this thing up. The War Act.
Yeah, get it up. It's taking you longer to get it up than it used to.
Voter guide.htm. Proposition 8. Get it right, yeah. Oh, no, I'm sorry. 6.
Oh, 6? Okay.
6. Proposition 6, there's all these ads. Vote no on 6. Vote no on 6 because all our infrastructure is going to fall apart. And we talked about this on the show once before. This is bull crap. Proposition 6 is nothing more than repealing a tax grab gasoline tax, which was just added to the gasoline prices.
Right.
And
what was that added for? I'm sure it was to pay for something.
It was added to steal money from the public.
Okay. Just making sure that California is still up to their old tricks.
Yeah. And so there's a huge – that's what triggered me to do this California Propositions No Agenda Voters Guide with a little cheat sheet at the bottom you can take to the – anyway, I would recommend these. These are all – and I've looked at a couple of these other contradictory ones like Proposition 10 is another interesting one where it's about rents, and it seems to be they're trying to vote it no because of the a bunch of real estate investment trusts and other people with a lot of money that is going to hurt them. Anyway, so there's that. So what I did was I got this is the first year I did this because I know in Washington State it's all vote by mail. But you can do that in California if you put in a request. And so I got my package yesterday, my official election balloting material, and it comes in this big envelope with all these ballots, real ballots, which I guess they put through the machine when they get it back. This has got to be $5 to $10 mailing per person.
Wow.
It's a real heavy package. It's got a lot of printed material. I was stunned, I tell you. You do have to put your own postage on it. But so you can always vote by mail. I mean,
wait a minute. You have to put your own postage on it?
Yeah.
It's not postage paid?
No. If it was U.S. government.
That's voter suppression.
Federal, yeah, maybe.
Well, they should pay for it. I have mail from banks that say no postage necessary.
This says additional postage required.
I understand, but that's voter suppression. You need actual money to do that kind of voting. You need stamp money.
I don't think so.
The reason I bring that up is because Texas is always – I was doing some of this, based upon what you were doing, and I wandered off into some other spot, and I found out that, Texas suppresses everybody because we have voter ID laws. If you do not have an ID, which is recognized, which is quite an extensive list of photo ID, you can come in with a check, a government check, a utility bill, anything like that will allow you to vote. So I don't know about all this. It's hurting black people because they don't have ID. You need a government check. I think, now, which, by the way, I mean, the whole statement is racist. Minorities can't get it because they don't have an ID. They can't go to the DMV. But I presume if you're thinking that way, they do have a government check. Anyway.
Well, we've already debunked this with the black community, which did a number of videos on, hey, we all have IDs.
Yes. Of course, we're not stupid. For Texas, I am. So the main thing is there's no props. But Austin has propositions. We have a $950 million bond, and I'm voting against all pieces of it. And I'm voting against Mayor Stephen Adler, who I think is just a weak douchebag. He is not, I mean, for example, we have $250 million for, here it comes, low-cost housing, affordable housing. No, this has never worked in Austin. Never, ever. And if it would work, it would become an instant ghetto. There's nothing in there for the homeless. There's nothing for what's going to happen with this huge influx of people. Transportation is no great ideas. So I'm voting against all of it. And mainly Stephen Adler, our fine mayor of Austin.
Sounds right.
Beta male extraordinaire. Now, as you know, I'm really irked about the scooter situation, and I have an update for you. And I believe that these companies, these Silicon Valley companies, in their arrogance, because they are arrogant cocks, have made a huge mistake. They've underestimated a massive point of their business models. So, to reiterate, these are the electric scooters that are dropped into a city without any coordination with the city to gain market share, to be the first one to do it. You need a smartphone. You can ride around with it. We've had Austin City Limits these past 2 weekends, ACL, lots of people riding the scooters. I want to say I'm very pro-electric scooter. I think it's a fantastic mode of transportation. But, Mayor Adler, we do need to have some rules, and we need to hold these companies accountable when people are driving over people on sidewalks, people are getting hurt unnecessarily, the regulations are unclear, people can't access, there's always the wheelchair access, these things are parked everywhere, thrown about, and he's done a very poor job of anything to do with that. But San Francisco is, in this case, an interesting model for Austin. What they did is they have now sanctioned by law this, the city's transit agency has said, you know what, we're going to let electric scooters back onto our streets, but only if you adhere to our regulations. And they had and I have it in the show notes, you can take a look at it. You have to have, the scooters have to adhere to certain specifications, but also you need people on the ground who are able to assist people. And the 8 companies bid for this. And it wasn't like they were just going to choose one. They said, okay, you have to, that a rating, fair, poor, poor, fair, good, excellent. If someone wants a helmet, one company actually will provide you one. And what they did is the guys who were the early birds, so to speak, didn't get permission, and they're incensed because this is Silicon Valley. Well, we're Uber. We bought this bike company. We put it in first. We should be on the streets of San Francisco. But this is where they made a mistake. They thought, just like the car model, where you just flood every city with Ubers, they thought they could do the same with scooters. But the thought process they made the mistake in is these scooters are not owned by individuals who are driving around the streets of San Francisco or Austin already. They're your property, and therefore they can be impounded, they can be forbidden, and your model of going in and flooding the market is not working. Now it's smaller guys, local companies, although arguably some of the Lime and Bird are local
fronts.
Yeah, possibly. Then they may be acquired. But I like it, and they've made a mistake by thinking that they're God Almighty. They can throw anything they want. That's really the thing that made me the most angry. Is who do you think you are? Like, it's a good idea, but let's do it properly, and not just throw shit into everyone's street, which is now happening in Copenhagen even. So I will give props to the city of San Francisco for doing that. I thought that was really good, and I like watching these assholes squirm because I really despise them.
Well, I read an article about this whole thing, and I don't think people understand it, that apparently the reason everyone's gotten onto this Jags so enthusiastically is like about a 90-day payout to break even on this scam. It's like 90 days to break even.
To break even on what?
On the cost of the whole adventure.
Per scooter or just in general? The whole?
No, the scooter deal.
90 days.
Yeah, something like 90 days. You put the scooters out there, and with the depreciation and the taxes and this and that and the other thing, as I said that, yes. 90 days later, you're now making money.
Yeah.
Even if the scooters are thrown in the bay, you're making money.
Right. Well, again, I'm for it. I'm not against it.
I'm not for it.
Okay. Well, in Austin, I think it's actually a great idea, but you have to have some rules, and Mayor Adler is not doing it.
Well, when one of these guys goes bombing by and knocks you on your ass, tell me what you think then.
Before we take our break, I want to have the unhinged Trump hater of the week. This is a voice we have not heard from before. I would say it rivals Rob Reiner. Very, very close. And something I'm noticing, actually, maybe because I was going to bring it up, I've cussed more than usual on today's show. But this seems to be the norm with Trump hate, is that look at Kathy Griffin, look at Robert De Niro, who I think Robert De Niro really gave license to everybody who hates Trump to use profanity. And some profanity or cuss words can be completely legitimate and can be very effective if you're much better at that than I am. I have Tourette's, so that's why so I think about it happens. And so this guy I liked as an actor, comedian, Robert Klein, was caught outside a restaurant. And I think he's our unhinged Trump hater of the week.
How about the Russians interfered in our election and he colluded with them? Huh? No. There is lots of proof of it. They had a meeting, didn't they? How about 22 people have been indicted? 11 Russians, Mr. Manafort, all those. These are people, they're indicted. They're pleaded guilty. They pled guilty. He's any other administration. If a man so close to the president pled guilty for taxes, he'd be gone. What if Obama had fucked a pornographic actress?
I love how he says fucked but won't say porn star. Somehow he gets a hold of himself and, I have to say that nicely. I have to say pornographic actress because I don't want to offend the porn community or something like that. This is very interesting.
What if Obama had fucked a pornographic actress?
13 years before being in office?
Excuse me. A few months after his wife gave birth, this is our president of the United States.
13 years before he goes in office?
Who gives a fuck? That's what he is.
Trying to bait you.
I like Trump. Well, that's your problem. That's your problem. That's wonderful. He's a great guy.
Wait a minute. What are you looking for?
He couldn't even introduce me properly at Mar-a-Lago when I had a gig. And you like...
Now we find the true source of his anger. I guess Trump flubbed the name Robert Klein at a Mar-a-Lago gig.
That's wonderful. He's a great guy.
Wait a minute. What are you looking for?
He couldn't even introduce me properly at Mar-a-Lago when I had a gig. And you like Trump?
I do. I like what I like.
You like that tax cut? And you like those judges?
I may not.
Good for you. You're an American. Hey, you think I'm out of control? I'm not.
Woo!
This is
let's go!
This is a typical Trump voter. Oh, wait a minute.
Who works?
There we go, baby. Here, let's get a picture together. Come on.
Fucking guy. This is what America's become.
Well, Robert Klein has been out of the picture for so long, but he is a notorious kind of hard to work with guy. Let's put it that way.
He seems like a gem. I wouldn't mind hanging out with him.
I'm going to show my support by donating to No Agenda. Imagine all the people who could do that. Oh yeah, that'd be fab. No Agenda in the morning.
And we do have some people to thank for show 1077, starting with Darren Turbeville. I can't really figure that one out. $142. Kyle Olenman in Cincinnati, Ohio, sent a check in for $140, and under the note on the check said "Show Production."
Oh, Show Production. Very nice. Thank you.
Exactly right. Sanity and show production are the two things you can put there that make the most sense. Dame Tanya, the Viscountess of New York City, $111.11. She's got apparently some birthday coming up.
Retroactive birthday list for her. It was her. Wish we had known.
Richard Clayton. Well, you know, Richard Clayton, Markham, Ontario, $111.11. Now, Nathalia. Bacalhau.
Back at you. Back at you.
Newport, Kentucky, 100. And Spillers in Crozet, Virginia.
Wow, it's a spook name if I've ever heard one.
What's Crozet, Virginia?
It's where the deep state lives. I don't know.
Peter Neumann in Bangkok, Thailand. Nice, $100
very
from
nice.
him. Baron Mark Tanner, $67.89 in Whittier. Christopher Dechter, $56.78. Sir Greg of the Parts Unknown, $55.10. The following people are $50 donors. We're done fast today. Robert Weber in San Jose. Dame Patricia Worthington in Miami, Florida. She's constantly helping us out. Brandon
Savoy. Yes.
In Port Orchard. I think he's a sir. Sir. Mark Johnson, Aurora, California. Gary Arcus in Perth.
Hey, Perth. Washington. Perth is back on the list.
Perth. I keep saying Washington when it's Western Australia.
Yeah, it's Australia. Perth. I haven't had Perth on the...
No, the Perthers don't like us.
No. Perthers do like us. They're
not living it up.
There's not a lot of people in Perth. It's just trees. It's green. It's beautiful. It's the complete other side of Australia.
Yeah. Keith Yarborough in Austin, Texas.
Hey, Keith.
You know him?
No.
John Haller, Missoula, Montana. Trevor Hoagland in Portland, Oregon. And last but not least, in the short list, Michael Coleman in the Woodlands, another Texan.
Yes.
Says he appreciates the humor and being politically agnostic. I try to acknowledge the competence. I happen to see this guy in this Colorado gubernatorial debate. You're in Texas. Oh, well. Anyway, I want to thank these folks for helping produce Show 1077.
And everyone who came in under that for reasons of anonymity, but a lot of you also on our subscriptions. I cannot stress how important these are. These are smaller amounts, but they're recurring, and we really appreciate that because that's just kind of a little base that we have, which is really nice. We could grow that a lot more. So please consider supporting the show that way. I wanted to mention I got this another weird gift, and I wondered if you had gotten them from Ryan Showalter. It's, I guess he works at a valve and casting company.
Oh, yes. Yeah, in fact, he's sent me a nice note. He's a third generation or second generation of a guy who said it was a very pleasant note.
Let me just explain what I have, because I didn't have a note. There was no note, just his card. And so it says Fresno valves, and I have an ice cream scoop and a bottle opener, and they're very cool. I mean, they really look interesting, and I presume they're made from valves.
No, they're not made.
They look like they're from valve handles. No?
They're cast.
Explain the notes.
Actual castings. And it may be a handle part of the casting, but the way you make castings is you make a mold and then you put sand around it. It's a long process, but I used to inspect these places. So I talked about it, and he said that he was listening to the show, and when I was bitching, as I do very rarely, he says, I heard what you said about the second and third generation kids not taking any interest in what their dad was doing or the business that they started, or especially the third generation has been my experience. And they just say, screw it. We don't want to have anything to do with it. We want to go off and do something else. We want to become ourselves, or they want to find something. He said he took it to heart.
Huh.
And he said his dad's business was being a big valve casting operation. Valves, maybe they do manhole covers. I don't know what, but they can cast things like those. What you got, the two gifts.
Yep.
And those are most of these foundries are called foundries. His dad owned a foundry. These foundries usually make a number of gimmicks that they give away to their customers, and I think those are the
okay.
Those are the gimmicks to show the style of the casting. It's like,
Interesting.
And so those are both nice. The ice cream scoop is particularly interesting.
And it's sharp too.
Well, it's designed for the parlors,
Yes.
It's the flat kind of a trowel-like thing where you dig in there and you can get a
trowel. Yes, trowel. That is the right word.
And so he said, and he went back and he decided to take it very seriously, and now he's entrenched as a guy running a foundry, which, by the way, has got to be a kick.
Huh. Well, okay, remind me, I have a note from a teacher right after we're done with the segment, because people do listen to us and take things to heart, even though...
I'm glad he took it to heart, because he must have been eating at him, because it seems to me that if you just happen to mention, it's a coincidence, it's a cosmic thing, I guess. You just happen to say something that just happens to trigger somebody. Right. Wait, I mean, I was just thinking about that. But
that's how the value network operates. Yeah, the value network operates in strange ways. We don't always understand it, but it does. And again,
we just do what we do.
We do. Thank you all very much for supporting the show. Please remember us. This was light today. We could do better on Thursday's show. You can go to
Dvorak.org/NA
and make a donation. And as requested, some jobs, Karma.
Jobs, and jobs. Let's vote for jobs.
You've got Karma.
And today is the day before your taxes are really, really due after the extension. It is October 14th, 2018. Belated birthday to Dame Tanya, Viscountess of New York City. She celebrated on October 6th. Today, we say happy birthday to Rusty Dutch. That comes from Sopot and Sir Funk. Katie Kavanaugh says happy birthday to her man, Sean Kavanaugh, turning 38. And David Fugazotto says happy birthday to his father, David Fugazotto Sr., who turns 77 today. Happy birthday from everybody here at the best podcast in the universe. And then we have one knighting. So that will be Rusty Dutch. And so we might as well get our unrusted swords ready for him.
Ready. It's all greased up.
That's what she said. All right, Rusty Dutch, hop on up to the podium here, right next to the lectern. You are about to join the illustrious group of our No Agenda Knights and Dames for your contribution and support of the show in the amount of $1,000. And therefore, I am very proud to pronounce-ticate thee Sir Gasket of the region. And for you, we have Hookers and Blow, Rent Boys and Chardonnay. We've got Crack Rock and Fishing Rod. We've got Warm Beer and Cold Women. We've got Zucchini and Meatloaf. We've got Parliaments and Pale Ale, Rabbit Meat and Goat Milk, Trophies and Tire Smoke. We got Fish Pie and Fellatio. We got Harlots and Houndall, Peppermint Rolls and Pale Ales, Redheads and Ryes. We got Mutton and Mead. Oh, yeah, Ginger Ale and Gerbils, Bong Hits and Bourbon, Breast Milk and Publin. I already said mutton and mead, so kind of screwed it up. But go to noagendanation.com/rings, and that's where you can hand over your girth and your dimensions. We'll make sure you get your info as soon as possible, your ring, your certificate, and your sealing wax. Thank you. Dvorak.org/NA. And here's that note I wanted to read.
What?
Well, I had a note. Yeah,
from the teacher.
Yeah, and now why can't I find my note all of a sudden? This is bad. Hold on. Yes, here we go. This is from A. Beers, a teacher. Adam, I'm a high school English teacher in Scandinavia. I just wanted to thank you for referencing the short story titled Harrison Bergeron by Kurt Vonnegut. After hearing about it on your podcast, I immediately looked into it and had my students read and deconstruct the short story. The results were amazing. I just want you to know how aware students are about this pendulum swing of hyper-equality and its impact. My students clearly articulated a variety of opinions about how all these social justice groups are actually creating a more divisive society in the end. I was proud of how well my students could see the errors in society and discuss them in non-judgmental environment, unlike the universities today, openly and freely. There is hope for the future. Your show and the work you and John are doing is having an impact directly and indirectly on more people than you know. Keep up the good work.
Yeah, we wish.
Buzzkill.
Now, here is I don't know if this is real. It was one of our producers sent it to me. It's apparently picked it up with a microphone off of a KUOW broadcast when they had their little This is a public broadcasting NPR kind of a station, and this is what he heard. And it was like, and by the way, it seems to me to be a violation of their advertising policy, because there was a call to action in this advertisement that one of those, we're sponsored by so-and-so, this is our underwriter. And listen to this.
UOW FM, KUOW Tumwater, and KQOW Bellingham.
Support for KUOW comes from the Central Intelligence Agency's Directorate of Operations, where mission and impact meet to address global challenges. Learn more at cia.gov/careers. Discover the truth.
It's 6 o'clock.
The payoff is great. I got a payoff, boss. Discover the truth. That's what it's going to be. I think it's real. I told you that Gina McCaskill was out recruiting. She was doing a speech at some university, and the whole thing was a recruitment session. They've got recruiters there they're signing people up left and right.
Well, they have to. I mean, people do, and tens of thousands of people work for the CIA, and so they have to hire them from someplace.
Yes, of course, of course, and
so
they go to colleges. Sure.
But I just thought it was strange that a public broadcasting station would use them as their underwriter.
Well, discover the truth. That's great. Discover the truth. We've got it here. Or create the truth. It's whatever you want. CIA, lots of capabilities. So last night, just disgusted with the news broadcasts, I wound up switching to HBO. Now, I trust a lot on HBO, unlike Amazon and Netflix, because, even though it may not be something I want, HBO has quality stuff. It's top notch. And so there's a couple of things I watched that I wanted to discuss. First of all, I have to say, hands down, are you familiar with Flight of the Conchords? Do you know these guys?
No.
So about 10 years ago, they had a show that's two guys from New Zealand, and they play mainly guitar, but lots of different instruments, and they have very funny lyrics, and it's a comedy bit. And it was very successful, and they've come back and they've done a special. And I just wanted to mention, you have to watch this, because at a certain point, they're doing a song, and they both break into a recorder solo. But I mean like Pete Townsend style. So you have to watch this, because I was crying. It was so good. And I thought of us, obviously. Like, there's an idea for us.
What?
Recorder.
Go on the road and then do a recorder solo?
You should see the Flight of the Conchords.
Okay, I'll check it out.
So that was on HBO. Then, even though they aired in a different order, because I was on the Roku box sending all of my information to Roku headquarters, I had Bill Maher. I wanted to watch that, but I first watched the very first video version of a podcast. This is very exciting for me as the Podfather.
Yes, this is the Pod Save America.
Save America, yes.
They decided to put it on the HBO.
They decided to put it on the HBO. That's correct. And I was excited for them. And I have heard of this podcast. I have listened to it. I believe it's
a Hillbutt podcast.
No. It is it's the former Obama speechwriters. They're both in this podcast. There's one guy who's kind of the comedian. They have a girl in there. And so they actually...
It's like a morning zoo.
A little bit. They took the whole podcast and then they do it on stage in front of a live audience. It was very, very animated. But this podcast is pretty much one thing and one thing only, including a little edited segment on how to canvass. It is completely a Democratic Party funded voter drive.
Sure.
From beginning to end, and making it's not a news show. It is a show to get you to go vote for Democrats and to hate Republicans and to particularly hate Donald Trump. I was telling you.
Sounds right.
So I have two clips from it. I was telling you earlier how I feel that most people, you and I'm not that way. I have some mental issues, Tourette's, neurological issue, I should say. But in general, most people have a filter where they don't cuss too much. They don't use the F word too much. Once in a while, maybe. But I believe that barrier has been broken. And it happened, license was given to everyone after De Niro said, fuck Trump.
Well, can I also mention something?
Sure.
I think that the excessive cussing you hear on podcasting is a form, not necessarily the pure form, but a form of virtue signaling.
Mm-hmm.
That, hey, look at me, I can cuss, because I'm free.
Because I'm a podcaster. Yes. That's part of it, but even Howard Stern had this when he first went on Sirius XM, coming from public airwaves, and everyone was F this, F that, and then they kind of had to reset themselves because there was too much freedom and the show was really sucking. It wasn't funny, and he figured that out very quickly. But there has a threshold amongst angry Americans. I'll just call them angry. I don't know if they're left or right, but has been surpassed, and the F word is being used everywhere. I'm going to give this one example in this clip. This was right at the beginning of the show with the girl, I forget her name, and well, just have a listen.
Aaron, normally I wouldn't associate the word strategy with Donald Trump, but he's been using this line quite a bit, and other Republican candidates have been talking about, George Soros-funded left-wing mobs for the last couple of weeks. What do you think the Republican goal is here?
Well, first of all, I think the fact that this is something they're bringing up this close to the election is a reflection of the fact that they're scared as fuck. And the reason...
Woo! She said fuck! Woo!
And the reason that I think they're very scared as fuck, if you will...
As they say.
As the old saying goes, is that people who are being fucked over are realizing that they're being fucked over and they're not going to fucking take it anymore. Those people who are being fucked over in a lot of cases are women, people of color, immigrants, people who are marginalized. And I don't think it's any mistake.
Isn't the definition of being marginalized getting fucked over? I mean, you could actually have just replaced fucked over with marginalized throughout your little speech.
Immigrants, people who are marginalized. And I don't think it's any mistake that Republican messaging, which originates from Donald Trump at this point, uses words that those people would also use to insult women and people of color. Like, women are used to being told that they're unhinged, they're hysterical, they're crazy. And I think that the president and people that are in his circle using those words is a reflection of their kind of inherent sexism and racism.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes. You say unhinged, you're sexist and racist.
Even though that's not a word that originated with the Republican side of the debate.
So I'm not going to play the second clip because I want to move to something else. But they have this game called OK Stop, which is pretty much what our show is, except the way they do it. Well, I'll show you how they do it.
Now it's time for a game we call OK Stop. Here's how it works. We'll roll a clip, and when the panel can say OK Stop at any point to comment. While some cities on Florida's Panhandle are still reeling after Hurricane Michael, Trump took time from his busy schedule of holding rallies to finally do the right thing, have lunch with Kanye West. The good folks at CNN had a lot to say about it. I have to tell you,
all right, so then what they do is they basically play the clip, but anyone on the panel can say, okay, stop. And it's really bad. It's like 5 minutes of bad. They don't even get to Don Lemon even really saying anything outrageous. It's just stupid. It's just really, really low rent, low quality, not well thought out, and hateful.
Except for the cursing, you take the cursing out, and they adjusted themselves. It sounds like a very mediocre PBS show that you hear on Saturdays. Kind of like Wait, Don't Stop Me.
Yes, yeah. Wait, don't tell me.
Or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And there's another one. There's 2 or 3 of these shows on PBS that were like that, and they're all they're glib.
Yeah, glib.
They're condescending. They're patronizing, and they're very know-it-all kind of left-wingish.
That concludes our.
I find them boorish.
Yes, that concludes our review of Pod Save America on HBO. Now, Bill Maher. This was one of the best shows I have seen. I have a number of clips. It was really, truly outstanding. Every type of personality was represented. But it started off with Omarosa, who, of course, is promoting her book.
She lives.
She does live, and she had a lot to say. And before I mention that, I watched the whole show. Bill Maher, I think, has something going on. He may not be well. he has kind of like that big Al Sharpton head on an oversized suit that you can tell is ill-fitting because he's really skinny underneath and his hands are really big, but the rest of his body it's less in proportion than usual, and I'm a little concerned. He might be sick.
Well, it could be this fit. It could be the suit itself that's making him look.
Well, then he really needs to work on that because it makes him look sick. The pencil neck kind of thing. So I'm a little worried. I'm a little worried. He brings
he's on a diet.
Well, he can slow down now. So he brings on Omarosa, and I only pulled 2 clips. The one that I picked this one.
Was she on the panel, or
she was the main guest. She was the special guest. And she was really like Miss Thang coming out. I'm sure it's racist of me to say, but and so Bill Maher had a lot of questions, and of course what he wanted is, hey, what is Trump really like? And you'll hear in here, she says something. She refers back to Bill Maher getting fired after 9/11. I just want to reiterate for our international producers. 2 weeks after 9/11, Bill Maher had a show. I think was it on Fox stations even?
No. I believe it was on
ABC. Maybe it was ABC.
I believe it was on ABC, and it was called Politically Incorrect, and it's pretty much the same show he's doing now.
Yes, and it was a great show to watch. It was ahead of its time. But then he said, I thought it was good. And
I never liked it.
Okay. I thought it was good. And 2 weeks after 9/11, there was a discussion, and everyone was talking about these cowards who killed all these people, these cowards. And he said, I'm paraphrasing, they weren't cowards. They flew themselves into buildings, so you can't call them a coward. And he was off the air.
Oh, no. It's worse than that.
Oh.
Just to add to your paraphrasing. I don't have it either, but it went more like this. Coward, just what you said. And then he says, I think people that fire missiles from ships off into the air, they're the cowards.
Oh, you're right.
We're the cowards. We, the American military, are the cowards.
Yeah, it was worse than I thought. Yeah, you're right. So he got yanked. The show was gone, and he didn't surface for years. I have no idea what happened to him until he kind of came back on HBO, and I didn't track him. So she makes reference to this. And I, in a way, appropriately.
Tick him off?
Oh, yeah. Of course. Have a listen. We're going to find out what Trump is really like.
I'm just saying, just because somebody's nice to you, I mean, you certainly must have known he was a giant liar. I don't think his personality changed. We know it didn't change when he got to the White House. Yeah, so you must have seen the racism and the hatred and the lying before.
It's easy to say that hindsight is 20/20. I mean, 15 years ago, I didn't know that Donald Trump was going to be as insane and unhinged as he is. I mean, he's
so it's worse than when you knew him on The Apprentice?
Greatly. I mean, even just his vocabulary. He has like 6 words that he says now. Huge, very soon, great.
Yeah.
I mean, back in the boardroom. Strongly. Back in the boardroom.
Not a word, but okay. So back in the day, how many did he know?
He knew a lot more than just...
He's like Coco the gorilla. He knew 500. But, look, I'm not out to get you. I never didn't like you. You're fun. But the one thing I didn't like is when after you guys got elected and you said that thing about everyone's now going to have to bow down to Donald Trump. That's not the way we talk in America.
But you of all people know about saying that, like that one dumb thing that everybody just, it was the stuff.
I mean, you're not the first guest to try that exact joke.
No, I'm not trying.
I could actually argue the merits of it, but we'll move on.
No.
He's still not over it. I could argue the merits of it, but we'll just move on, you stupid woman.
Well, I think what really bugged him was that he knuckled under. The opinion was valid. He can say what he wants.
Oh, right.
But he told, I'm so sorry. I mean, it was almost like Kathy Lee Griffin after she held the fake head of Trump all bloody.
You mean
she made all these apologies
Griffin.
Afterwards trying to get her life back, and then she regretted doing it.
It's not Kathy Lee Griffin. That's you put
what
two
did
people.
I say?
You said Kathy Lee Griffith.
Okay.
Kathy Griffin.
Yeah, well,
I'm like, wow, what? I had a weird picture. All right, but yes, you're right.
He's the wrong Kathy Lee.
He's pissed off that he bowed down to every. There it is. the bow down to Trump, and he had to bow down to everybody else. He's double pissed off about it. Good catch.
I could actually argue the merits of it, but we'll move on.
No. But it was stupid. It was dumb, and it was something that I said in the height of campaign hyperbole. Certainly I don't believe that everybody's going to bow down, but at the time I had an audience of one. When you work for Trump, you're not trying to entertain the audience. You're trying to entertain him.
Okay, that's the honest answer.
Yeah,
the audience of one is what so much of this country is off track about.
Yeah.
All of Fox News is for an audience of one.
Audience of one, that's right.
Okay.
Have you seen the Fox News ratings? An audience of one. This is delusional thinking. That Fox News is there only for Donald Trump.
Yes, and they don't even do a very good job of catering to him, as far as I'm concerned.
No, but now comes some really good insight. What are Jared and Ivanka like? And this is extremely interesting. But I think what Omarosa implies here and what she says is very, very disgusting.
Okay, all right. What about Ivanka and Jared? What is?
Call them White House Ken and White House Barbie.
Everybody does it.
Yeah,
that's funny.
White House Ken and Barbie.
Are they smart?
She's making a face like, I guess not.
I mean, Jared is the one that is the most inscrutable to me. I can't get because he doesn't speak. He's the one I would be most curious to have dinner with because he might be smart. No? Okay.
I mean, his political career started when Donald Trump decided to announce.
Oh, I know that.
Right. And so he's that guy in the room that thinks he's the smartest guy in the room and has absolutely no idea.
No, we know he's not knowledgeable about the field.
But you asked, is he smart? And
yes.
He didn't even know basic political jargon. And when you try to correct him, he gives you that kind of posture like, are you, a woman of color, really trying to tell me something? And so the sad thing about Jared, is that he doesn't know how stupid he sounds when he's talking in those meetings.
Right? See, I'm learning. That's very interesting. And Ivanka, is Trump really hot for her? Is that a thing?
He said it himself. I'm just going to say
he said it himself.
He wanted to sleep with his daughter. It's pretty disgusting.
It's pretty disgusting on a daily basis.
He would pat her on the behind. He would kiss her on the lips. He would rub her for very long periods of time.
Play that game. Did she say he wanted to sleep with his daughter?
Yeah. Of course he didn't.
That's what she said.
I know. Of course he didn't. He said, if I wasn't his father, I'd date her if I was younger or something like that. It was about dating her. Yes.
But he never said he wanted to sleep with her.
No.
She just throws that out and is so fine with everybody, and everyone's, oh, yeah, that's what he said. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I guess so.
Wow.
Right?
I mean, it was...
Keep talking.
Awkward.
It's like one of those old 976 numbers, right? In front of people?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what did she do? Excuse me, I need a little drink. What was her reaction to that?
She just loved it. She loved being daddy's little girl. She loved being daddy's little girl. Wow. And she would always say, my daddy, and then she would correct herself, my father thinks that, and I'm like, where'd this accent come from? I met her when she, 15 years ago, she wasn't talking that way. Okay. She had a very potty mouth. Maybe she cleaned it up for the White House, but.
Okay, well, I thank you for putting up with my questions.
I think that's going pretty far. Really implying that there's incest going on between the president and his daughter.
It's on the list.
Yes, of course.
On the list.
But she's brave enough to go and do it.
It's on the list. It's got to be done.
So I'm going to stay with politically incorrect because he had 3 guests on, which the most interesting was this. It was this Muslim guy named and it's relevant in this. He's brown. He's Muslim. Reihan Salam, he's the editor of the National Review. Does that make him a right-winger? I don't know what the National Review is.
Well, this is the guy that I've pointed out before that has replaced Brooks on the Brooks and Shield Friday News Rundown.
Oh, well, I like this guy.
and he is much better than Brooks. He's not quite as forward as he could be. He could be a little meaner.
Now, Brooks is supposed to be the
nice guy.
Brooks is the right wing of the Brooks and Dunn.
Supposedly the right wing, but he hates Trump and he doesn't like the modern Republicans, and he's kind of an old-fashioned moderate type. But I think he's a Democrat, and I think he said he was a Democrat once, and we caught him on it with a clip. But beside the point, when this Salim guy comes on, he is far superior to Brooks and far superior to Shields. He should be a regular doing that bit with somebody else besides Brooks. I mean, besides Brooks and besides Shields. They need 2 new guys.
Well, I have one clip, and it'll be the final one of this triage, where this guy is he's really smart, really good, and just slams people without them even realizing. It's fantastic. So also on the panel was, what is her name? I'd just seen her on Book TV. Okay, I'm so sorry. I don't remember what her name was. But a very angry woman. The book is about angry women. That's part of the title is, the validity of America's angry women. Sorry, I wish I had her name written down. I don't know what happened. Also, though, is Eddie Glaub Jr. He is professor at Princeton University. And he's black. So we have the white woman who wrote the book about women being angry. We have the Muslim, who is the right winger in this case, and we have, you would think, the impartial professor, the Princeton professor who was black. So this is your panel.
Do we know this guy's actually a Muslim? Because it was never made clear.
Yes, it was made clear on this show.
Okay, good.
Yeah, in the introduction, and he talks about some Muslim stuff as well. So we start off, and this is what really caught my eye. We had the situation, I think you brought it up on the last show, about Scott Kelly, astronaut, who had tweeted, well, you tell it. It was your story.
He said he just used a Winston Churchill quote and was slammed by the Twitterverse and a bunch of lefties going on and on about how Churchill was a horrible racist pig. And then they went on, and the guy knuckled under. Okay, I'm sorry. Churchill's a bad person. And this is part of the whole tearing down the statues, and anyone who's white is a creep.
So Bill Maher, who has always been against political correctness, as we just said, his first show was called Politically Incorrect. And he brought this story up. I cut out all the part of him explaining it. And he's like, what the hell is this? This is an astronaut. Why? What is this political correctness about? And he had the right panel to explain it.
This is the guy who saved us from the Nazis. And he was a fighter pilot, married to Gabby Gifford, who was shot and bravely continues on. And people on Twitter, and no one denounces this. And he has to make an apology. Hold up. This is when the Trump people go, yes, you people are too fragile to be in control of the government.
No. What was the case? What if it...
This is the black professor, and chiming in will be Rebecca Traister. She is the white woman, the author.
Was the case that he realized that the invocation of Winston Churchill wasn't consistent with what he values, that he didn't know everything about Churchill. And then he realized that Churchill in 1943 sanctioned, the starving of Indians in Bengal. He realized, in fact, that Churchill was, in fact, a vehemently committed racist to the imperial project. He realized that Churchill did not represent his... So what I mean by this, I want to say this really quickly. For those who have been caught under the foot of history, you just can't simply invoke the mandate of history as a reason to accept certain figures. Hold up.
Of course.
You can't just simply mandate. So Lincoln...
Yeah, just listen to him, because he's not only explaining why Churchill was a bad guy, he's explaining what political correctness actually is, the act of politically correcting people. This is very important.
Hold up.
Of course.
You can't just simply mandate. So Lincoln comes to me. I can embrace Abraham Lincoln. Right? I can embrace his view of democracy. But then I realized that Lincoln held a view that white people mattered more than black people.
Yes.
Now, once I understand Lincoln fully, I can then embrace him on my own terms. But I cannot accept Lincoln just because the West declares him as great. I have to accept him like I'm.
But every time I bring up Lincoln, do I have to apologize first?
No, that's not what he's saying in that moment.
Well, I think,
and in part, what we write off as political correctness is correcting a record that has been too simple, that we haven't been taught the complexities, that the power that we so often are taught to celebrate or admire purely is built on inequity and bias that is not often revealed to us. And it's a matter of correction. And the other problem is that when we focus on these things, like the Twitter controversy around hailing Winston Churchill, we are taking part in representing this as left activism, that this is the left wing, when in fact there are strikes going on. Yeah. There are strikes for higher wages, strikes against sexual harassment by McDonald's. But we focus on the flare-ups on Twitter and not on the record numbers of women and people of color running for office for the first time as a Democratic Party. We miss what liberalism is doing, what the left is doing right now.
All right, so she's just a little, I'll just say it, hysterical. But she makes the point. Now I understand. The black man, I'm just going to call it the way I literally saw it with my own eyes. The black man professor says, you can't embrace people unless you know everything about them. Then you can embrace them when you know the good and the bad, which I think is every person has good and bad. And then she says, that's right. You have to correct everybody. Political correctness is correcting everybody on the record. So you're balanced.
I think he also used the word, he or she was word hailing Churchill. All he did was quote Churchill with a two-liner that had something to do with what he was up to. It had nothing. It wasn't hailing Churchill. He was just throwing if he put the random quote in there and didn't put Churchill's name on it, as someone once said, quote unquote, would this have happened? What is this? This is really very targeted, if you ask me. This is extremely fishy. But go on.
No, it's what political correctness is. Even a quote is no longer valid unless you virtue signal by saying something like, he may not have been the best man, but he said this. See, then it would have been okay. Because you have to constantly, in political correct America, both sides, and this comes up in a minute, you have to correct the record. This has to be correct. Now, this takes place. Now, Rehan, what?
I was just thinking to myself, what needs to be corrected?
Oh, everything.
Who cares about Churchill's history in the 1930s? He said this poignant quote, and this guy just quoted him.
Yeah, but John, I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing that. I'm saying this is what it is. This is what's happening.
I understand that, but I'm just so baffled by it.
You're baffled by it. Yeah, I understand.
It's being so extremely upset about all these little things. This is ant fucking.
Yes, and it gets better. So now, this is just a quickie. This is the first time Rehan Salam jumps in, and he says he's trying to explain something like, hold on a second, this is not good.
Everyone in America feels like they're losing right now. Democrats feel like they're losing. Republicans feel like they're losing. Democrats feel like they're locked out of power. Republicans feel like they've lost the culture. And it really is true. Maybe, you don't agree with that perception, but there are people who really feel as though their values are being effaced. They feel like a hounded minority. And as crazy as that might sound to people who disagree with them, I think that feeling is real.
I think they're performing loss in a moment of victory.
I think it's deeply genuine. I think that people really do feel a genuine sense of loss and a loss of cultural power. And you're right to suggest that people think that political power and the exercise of political power is one way to push back against a culture that really does feel lost.
I think he's gotten to something there. The loss of culture. Yes, I think that's exactly what the Republicans are feeling. They feel a loss of culture. Because the culture in America, which is television and movies mainly, is very left-leaning. So they feel there's a loss.
Hateful. It's very hateful.
Loss of culture, and Democrats feel they've been locked out of power. So he's making a good point. This is not Bill Maher doesn't like this guy at all, by the way. He's just there to provide some semblance. Now
he won't be back then.
Well, I think he will. This is the final clip. We're going to go back to the political correctness with Professor Eddie Glaub. And now you heard him in that first clip. He actually said, shh, no, don't interrupt me. He said that to Muslim guy, brown Muslim guy. Just call him, it's easier. Black professor guy, white angry woman, brown Muslim guy. And he is going to now really tell you what his feeling is, and he speaks in this case, I guess, on behalf of Black America, and he gets slammed by, so Reihan Salam gets slammed by the black professor. You'll hear it. And the guy comes back at the end, our brown Muslim friend, and he puts them down and speaks so powerfully about the cult in America, the political cults. I thought it was just one of the best things I've ever seen.
I just find this really odd. And I find it odd for a couple of reasons. One, I think we take the exaggerated example to dismiss the principle. So at the heart of political correctness is this reality that this country is no longer a white nation in the vein of old Europe. Yes. And so that means white men, white straight men, can't walk around saying whatever the hell is on their minds.
That's right. That's right. Yeah! Woo! I made it! White straight men, old straight white men, can't speak their minds in this country.
Yeah, tell it to the podcast.
Yes. And so that means white men, white straight men, can't walk around saying whatever the hell is on their minds.
That's right. That's right.
Period.
Shut up, white man. Really? Shut up.
So, and I'm not trying to make this. I'm not trying.
You mean about Scott Kelly can't say?
No. Part of what
Churchill without apology.
I take Scott Kelly. I take him to say that I didn't know everything about Winston Churchill, and Winston Churchill probably doesn't represent what I value. Okay. So part of what I'm trying to get at is this, right? The country is changing. Dramatic demographic shifts are happening. See, people are insecure because the culture is shifting. And one of the things that's shifting is that certain folk can't go around saying what they think they can say without being held to account.
Just one thing I think is really important to emphasize, that people who
So white men can't go around saying whatever they want without being held to account. That is what political correctness is. You can't just say something. If you're anything, if you're white, then you will be held to account and you will be read the record as it is proper.
Without being held to account.
Just one thing I think is really important to emphasize, that people who are most vulnerable to this are people of color who hold dissenting opinions in their communities. These are people who really feel silenced, and these are people who do not look.
That's an interesting move.
It's actually also deeply true. There are lots of folks who feel totally invisible because the college-educated, upper-middle-income people who serve as stand-ins.
He's talking about the professor.
For people who belong to category X, Y, or Z are not necessarily representative of 100% of the people who belong to these various categories. When you look at liberal Muslims, for example, when you look at Muslims who are looking at talking about let's have more freedom, let's have more secularism, these are folks who oftentimes feel silenced and afraid. You see this in many other groups too. I'm not saying that the people who have these dissenting opinions are right. Many times they might be totally wrong. What I'm saying is that they exist and they are invisible in these spaces, and this drive for status and prestige. I keep saying that, but that drive silences a lot of folks.
Pursuant to this conversation, because if you criticize Islam at all, the politically correct police will say you're a bigot.
Including if you're a Muslim in good standing.
It all depends on how you criticize Islam.
Well, of course. But
I mean, so part of what I'm trying to, we have the nuance. It all depends on how you render your critique.
Great.
That was a nice move in the sense that.
See, the professor's like, okay, that was funny. That was
incredibly patronizing.
He is patronizing this guy into the ground, and then the brown Muslim comes back and just whips him with it.
Part of what happens in this context,
it was pretty sincere, Eddie.
I
just got to say.
I know it was sincere.
By the way, when he's doing that, he's patting his hand. That was a very nice move. He was so patronizing. It was really, really awkward.
The nuance. It all depends on how you render your critique.
Great.
That was a nice move in the sense that part of what happens in this context.
It was pretty sincere, Eddie.
I
just got to say.
I know it was sincere, but part of what happens is the way in which a certain kind of victim discourse can then be appropriated so that you could play. Because I think Republicans have mastered this pincer move. On the one hand, they revel in the spoils of victory, exercising Machiavellian power. And then when they get called out for doing what they do, they clutch their pearls and then claim to be victims.
Which is what's happening around Kavanaugh. That is exactly the dynamic. That is exactly the dynamic that I described around Kavanaugh. We have been attacked, and they're using it as leverage to suggest that they are the victimized.
Okay, Bill, I just want to say there are two kinds of spirals we have right now. Okay. You have rage spirals and you have self-satisfaction spirals. And the self-satisfaction spirals are really powerful and addictive. You are a space where you're affirmed, people cheer for you when you say certain things, and it's amazing and it's addictive, and it's why Republicans and Democrats both lose. Because you have Republicans who find themselves solely in their affirming space, and you have lots of liberals who are in the exact same space. That's what I think of as political correctness, whether of the right or the left. It's a self-satisfaction spiral.
There you go. Burn.
Yeah. Well, the guy definitely was that guy. That black guy was
dick.
Well, you know, the funny thing is he was a total dick and considered himself a great debater.
Yes.
Because he could pull some of these tricks, which are just low.
Mm-hmm.
When I was going to Cal when I was a student, 100 years ago, this is the same stuff then. It was the same stuff. This is nothing even close to being new.
Interesting.
It's the same kind of this kind of condescending, and it was the same kind of guy. They're very insecure. They're not very academic in reality. This is all taken from a bunch of this is polemics from a bunch of radicals that the Bill Ayers and these types of people that have this down to a science, and it's just passed off. The fact that it's even taking place at the university level to this day with no dissents, and you get the one guy over there trying to defend himself, even though I didn't think it was as effective as you apparently do.
Maybe it just looks better when you see the whole thing on video. That's possible.
It was it wasn't a butt slam. But that guy, that black guy, was just the worst case scenario. And that woman, she was just useless.
She's very angry.
Well, that's what she wrote a book on.
Yes, and she was
gonna get sick. She can't be angry like that.
She was shaking. No, she was shaking, John. She was shaking. Yeah, she was shaking. That's how mad she was.
She's not going to survive.
And I'd just seen her on Book TV, and I was like, wow, this is interesting. Because, we have the Austin Book Fair coming up. If she comes, I want to go see her speak. She's angry.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of angry women that are
so misogynist.
So heard about Hillary.
So misogynist.
It is a little. No, it's not. It's very realistic. She's butthurt about Hillary, and she's irked about it, and she doesn't see any reason why this all happened. She's like the woman in green on her knees, screaming at the top of her lungs about Trump winning.
Right. That's pretty much it. All right. Do you have any last thoughts?
I've got this weird presentation about Stacey Abrams. I got Kavanaugh misconduct reports. We got Judy and Mark and Shields and Brooks. This might be worth listening because we do have this. We're getting closer to the midterm, so we might want to hear what Brooks and Shields on PBS have to say about the election. And it's kind of interesting if we start off with Judy and Mark analysis of the midterms.
So the president, it seems, out on the campaign every single day.
Hold on. I may have accidentally grabbed the wrong one. Here we go.
The president, it seems, out on the campaign every single day, jetting out to whether it's Tennessee or Pennsylvania or another part of the country today. Mark, he's in Ohio trying to energize the Republican vote, the base, trying to get them out. Is it working, do you think?
Republicans feel it's working better than it did 2 or 3 weeks ago, Judy. But I think what is remarkable about it is how constant it is. You said about energizing the base. It's about inflaming people. Donald Trump's message is never about forging a coalition, reaching across the divide, trying to enlist a majority. It's always about coming back to it's us against them, and we may not be perfect, but boy, those other guys are really bad. And I think that's the message. It's going to be a referendum, as it is every midterm, on the president, and his numbers right now are just about the same point where Barack Obama's were in 2010 when the Democrats suffered an enormous defeat, Bill Clinton's in 94 when the Democrats suffered a big defeat, and 2006 George Bush's when the Republicans lost control of the Congress.
So they're sticking to this idea that they're going to be a big red wave or blue
wave.
But I don't think he goes out to inflame anybody. You've heard his speeches. You've been there.
Well, I mean,
it's a comedy act, isn't it?
Yes, but that's not presidential.
So he's inflaming people. I don't believe this is true. So I think he's wrong. So if you go to
let me just say the way. Okay, so there's the view of Trump inflaming his audience and them being an angry mob, which is, of course, what the Republicans accuse the Democrats of, is based on Trump saying Dianne Feinstein and the crowd yelling, chanting, lock her up.
Lock her up.
So they see that as inflammation and they see that as a mob. And I think both are correct in that case.
If you're going to interpret it from a wide perspective. Now, here's what Brooks comes back with.
But you do have the president, David, out talking about Democrats are part of an angry mob, calling them evil. I mean, using some of the strongest language he's used. Is that likely to get his base even more fired up?
Yep. Yeah, I think it's working. We're in an age of negative polarization, and that means you don't have to like your own party, you just have to hate the other one.
We're in an age of negative polarization? What does that even mean?
Doesn't really mean anything.
This is the dawning of the age of negative polarization.
And that means you don't have to like your own party, you just have to hate the other one. And that means it's all about contempt. And has the other side made you appalled? Have they made you feel contemptuous? And one thing the Kavanaugh hearing has done is it made both sides feel the other is appalling. And so that has fired up both bases. And the effect is, and it's always worth reminding ourselves that we no longer have one election anymore. We have a red state election and a blue state election. And they're increasingly disconnected. And so the odds are looking pretty good. The polls have been shifting in the Republican way on the Senate side in all those red states, Texas and Montana and those places. And the Senate is looking more secure as of this moment. The House is looking more endangered for the Republicans at this moment as suburban women move over to the Democratic side. So we have two different elections, and there seems to be pretty strong momentum in opposite directions.
I'm not going to argue that.
No.
I think if the Democrats get the House, that puts Pelosi back in power.
I think we don't know crap. We don't know anything.
But we can make some educated guesses.
No.
And we do know one thing for sure. It's a lot funnier when Pelosi's running things on the Democrat side. And it'll be a lot funnier if the Democrats get the House back. Personally, I don't think they will, but let's play the last of this and I'm done with it.
How are Democrats countering this? I mean, this approach by the president, Mark. I mean, there's this a couple of polls, including the one we did with Marist and NPR this week that came out and showed, yes, the enthusiasm gap has narrowed. It was the Democrats who were more energized, and indeed, Republicans seem to be more energized. How do Democrats come back?
Well, the first thing they ought to do is stop picketing and stop boycotting. And organize. I mean, the most Democratic group in the entire electorate of voters is 18 to 35. And they live everywhere. They aren't concentrated in certain districts like perhaps African Americans or Latinos are. They're everywhere. And if they vote, the Democrats will win big. I will say this. I think the most encouraging sign for the Democrats is the Democrats do have a national macro message in this campaign. It's about checks and balances on the president. It's not a new message, but it's a message that certainly resonates with an awful lot of voters.
Yeah, checks and balances, yes.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't.
It doesn't resonate at all. By the way, before we end, I do want to say something. You made mention on the show about the crappy house building in Florida.
Yes.
And so I was thinking about, and I got a couple notes from some. There apparently have been new housing regulations about building and some of the newer places. Yeah. And if you look at Mexican Beach or whatever it's called,
Mexico Beach,
there you can see the old houses are demolished, and there's a house right in the middle, a big, giant, beautiful place, still standing, roofs intact.
Yep.
And there's blocks of houses missing, and there's blocks of houses all intact, roofs intact. They're fine. So they are making improvements in the building code.
Oh yeah, they have to for insurance purposes. Everybody has to be up to code. I know this because Tina lived in Florida for 16 years, so she's been through storms and she has standing in on the subject. And But I just look at it. You said the metal frame. It's just like, the metal frame of the house was left that kept up the sheetrock. I mean, we build crappy houses in America. It's okay. It's just what it is. We build houses like we build our cars. There you go.
I'm just saying, there's a lot of houses that were standing that were obviously built well.
Yes. We
build good houses, too. We just don't build nothing but crappy houses.
Well, okay. You're right. You just got to have enough dough.
Well, yeah, if you want to build a lean-to, which is what they're encouraging in California.
A shanty.
By just tearing down shanties, yeah. Yeah, you want to build a shanty town made out of aluminum foil and tin and leftover fiberglass pieces and tents.
Yeah.
I think those things are subject to wood destruction.
And that is our deconstruction for today. Please support our work and support all producers around Gitmo Nation by going to Dvorak.org/NA and supporting us. And subscribe to the newsletter, please. It helps you remember what we're doing. And it's an outstanding product. And coming to you from downtown Austin, capital of the Drone Star State, FEMA Region 6 on all your governmental maps in the 5x9 Cludio, in the common law condo. In the morning, everybody, I'm Adam Curry.
And from northern Silicon Valley, I'm John C. Dvorak.
We return on Thursday with another episode of the best podcast in the universe. Please join us for that. Again, Dvorak.org/NA. Until then, as always, adios, mofos!
Donate to a No Agenda. They give ushers week after week. Donate to a No Agenda. It's a show that's really unique. Donate to a No Agenda. Listen to John and Adam speak. Donate to a No Agenda. Science is turning into a clique.
M-word. Mob. Mob. Mob, mob, mob. Mob, mob, mob. Mob, mob, mob.
Not trustworthy. He makes promises. As a matter of fact, I wonder sometimes if he's not taking his cues from Putin.
A day without a woman.
We walked out to say enough is enough.
Resist.
And the wall that he was going to build, the big, beautiful wall. We walked out to say enough is enough.
Resist. A day without a woman.
Man is not trustworthy. He makes promises. As a matter of fact, I wonder sometimes if he's not taking his cues from Putin. We walked out to say enough is enough.
Resist.
Well,
trust we much. The best podcast in the universe.
Adios, mofo.
Dvorak.org/NA.